Chapter 2942, Jian Wushuang's Goal. Jian Wushuang first looked at the identity tokens. There were many identity tokens. Jian Wushuang checked the list one by one and finally got the result. 11,700 points? Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. It had only been 2 days since the 10-day deadline for the mission, but the vicissitudes of life elder had already obtained 11,700 points. All of these points came from the divine masters of Black Dragon Mountain, but not the immortal saint. Obviously, the vicissitude elder only intended to deal with the divine masters of Black Dragon Mountain, but not the immortal saint of Black Dragon Mountain. Moreover, the reason why he could get so many points in just 2 days was not only because he had killed the experts of Black Dragon Mountain, but also because he had killed the other participants on the way. Just now, if Jian Wushuang was not strong enough, he would have had no choice but to flee in embarrassment when facing this weathered elder. Even whether he could escape or not was a different matter. There are no restrictions in this assessment mission. The participants can not only get points by killing experts of Black Dragon Mountain, but also kill people from the same camp. The speed of getting points will be faster. Jian Wushuang understood this point. He had killed 3 groups of experts from the Black Dragon Mountain in a row and did not let any of them go. He only got more than 5,000 points, but now he killed an elder from the same camp and got 11,700 points in one go. It was easy to imagine how fast he got points. I'm only a divine master. The standard for passing the assessment is only 10,000 points. I've completed the assessment and now, Jian Wushuang's expression became strange. He had already met the criteria for passing the assessment, so there was no need for him to continue killing. However, after killing the hunchbacked elder, he saw great benefits. Yes, benefits. The immortal saint was not only powerful but he was also worth a lot. For example, after killing the hunchbacked elder, Jian Wushuang had obtained countless resources, and there were no less than 600,000 saint elixirs. He needed saint elixirs. After all, his current realm was still that of an advanced great divine master. He had not reached peak divine master yet, so there was still some room for improvement. To improve his realm, he needed saint elixirs. Normally, in the outer territories, many immortal saints either occupied their own territories or were under the command of a great force. They did not actively provoke me, so it would not be easy for me to deal with them. But now it's different here, Jian Wushuang muttered. Black Dragon Mountain was in the middle of a massacre. The 2 camps, or even the same camp, were engaged in a fierce battle. In such an environment, Jian Wushuang did not care about the number of people and tried to plunder more resources. Forget about the divine masters in Black Dragon Mountain. If I kill them now, I'll be too much of a bully. My target is the immortal saints in Black Dragon Mountain. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands, his eyes shining. There are 11 immortal saints alive in Black Dragon Mountain, and 2 of them are top-notch false saints. Each of them has a lot of resources. I can get a lot of benefits from killing one of them. In 10 days I'll see how many I can find and kill. Jian Wushuang smiled wickedly and soon he set off again. The land where Black Dragon Mountain was located was not big. If an immortal saint traveled at full speed, he could cross the entire land in 2 or 3 days. Jian Wushuang was traveling alone in this land at an extremely fast speed. His soul power swept out unscrupulously. Along the way he also sensed many auras. Unfortunately, what he sensed were only the divine masters of Black Dragon Mountain. Although there were many of them, Jian Wushuang did not plan to attack them. Instead he passed by them. What Jian Wushuang was looking for were the 11 immortal saints of Black Dragon Mountain. The 11 immortal saints were absolutely confident in their strength. Because of the death of the ancestor of Black Dragon Mountain, they were also very angry. Therefore, among the 11 immortal saints, most of them were wandering around like Jian Wushuang and the others. The immortal saints and 27 divine masters of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance were trying to hunt down the experts of Black Dragon Mountain. The immortal saints of Black Dragon Mountain were also hunting down the divine masters of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. Jian Wushuang searched all the way until he met an immortal saint of the Black Dragon Mountain on the 4th day of the mission. The boy of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance was met by me, Jian. You're dead. I'll kill you to avenge the deaths of the many cultivators of the Black Dragon Mountain. The burly man of the Black Dragon Mountain looked at Jian Wushuang with bloodshot eyes. He stared at Jian Wushuang with a giant axe in his hand. If you want to kill me, just do it. Jian Wushuang smiled slightly and waved at Jian provocatively. Die. In his fury, Jian charged forward like a prehistoric beast. His steps were extremely heavy as if each step weighed hundreds of millions of pounds. After several steps, he appeared in front of Jian Wushuang. Then he swung the huge axe in his hand. In an instant, a mighty shadow of the axe appeared and covered the entire void. Jian Wushuang chuckled and also struck out with his sword. As soon as the two came into contact, two terrifying forces burst out at the same time. Jian Wushuang's body shook and he took 2 steps back, while Jian took several steps back. Your strength is not bad. You are much stronger than the hunchbacked old man that I killed before, but Jian Wushuang's eyes flashed with a cold light. With a strange move, he appeared beside Jian, and the Blood Mountain sword carried a beam of demonic light. He silently attacked Jian. So fast. Jian was shocked and quickly blocked it. With a clang, Jian Wushuang appeared on the other side, and the same sword light attacked again. Too slow, your speed is too slow. Jian Wushuang shouted. Ah boy, go to hell. Jian was like an angry beast, crazily swinging his huge axe, trying to suppress Jian Wushuang. However, Jian Wushuang did not confront him head-on. Your speed is too slow. You can't touch me at all. Be my target. Jian Wushuang smiled coldly. The endless sword light had completely enveloped Jian. Chapter 2943, Top False Saint Clang. 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 Jian Wushuang attacked again and again. Each time, his swordsmanship was unbelievably fast, and the angles were extremely tricky. Although Jian was powerful, he obviously could not keep up with Jian Wushuang's speed, so he could only take a beating passively. In just a moment, Jian Wushuang's Blood Mountain sword had swept over his divine body twice, but he had resisted it. Jian's attack is not only powerful, but his body protection ability is also very strong. Jian Wushuang thought. Boy, are you tickling me? Your attack has no effect on me at all, Jian growled. Tickling me? Let's try again. Jian Wushuang smiled coldly and thrust the long sword in his hand forward. The thrust was extremely swift and fierce, and a spiral passage immediately appeared in the void. The dazzling sword light burst out with astonishing power and instantly struck Jian's divine body. There had always been a layer of faint golden energy on the surface of Jian's divine body. This faint golden energy helped him block the damage from the outside world. However, as Jian Wushuang's sword pierced through, the faint golden energy directly shattered with a bang. Jian Wushuang suddenly took a step forward. This step immediately closed the distance between him and Jian, and then he directly slashed out with the Blood Mountain sword in his hand. The sword was so fast that Jian could not withstand it. The sword light immediately swept toward Jian's neck. It's useless. I'm wearing protective armor at the level of a holy treasure. You can't hurt me with your swordsmanship, Jian shouted in a low voice. But he had just finished his words. The protective armor on his neck, where Jian Wushuang's sword light swept, was suddenly cut open, and the Blood Mountain sword entered Jian's divine body through the opening, then it flew out from the other end. A huge head flew out. How is this possible? Jian was shocked, but his vitality was completely cut off. He did not know that Jian Wushuang's Blood Mountain sword was a second-grade holy treasure and extremely sharp. Although Jian's protective armor was powerful, it was only in the 3rd grade. In front of the Blood Mountain sword, it could not withstand the terrifying tearing force at all. A huge hole was immediately torn in the protective armor. In the void, Jian Wushuang looked coldly at Jian's corpse and shook his head secretly. Weak, too weak. I didn't use any means. I didn't use many secret skills. I killed him easily with my divine power and comprehension of sword principle. Jian Wushuang sighed. He was indeed a divine master now, and he was only an advanced divine master. He had not reached the peak divine master level yet. However, his battle strength had long surpassed that of many immortal saints. If he used a secret skill, he could kill a false saint like Jian with one sword strike. Even if he did not use a secret skill, he could still kill him. It was indeed difficult for a mere false saint to exert any pressure on him. After disposing of Jian's body, Jian Wushuang began to inspect Jian's interspatial ring. Jian was much stronger than the hunchbacked elder who had been killed by Jian Wushuang. Moreover, he was a member of the highest level of Black Dragon Mountain, so he naturally had more resources and treasures in his hands. Jian Wushuang also obtained a lot of saint elixirs in Jian's interspatial ring, and a lot of saint elixirs. Go ahead and hopefully you'll meet someone stronger next, or it'll be too boring. Jian Wushuang murmured and continued to move forward. In the blink of an eye, 7 days had passed since the 10-day deadline. In the middle of a vast canyon. Boom. One of the sides of the gorge burst open, and a figure sank completely into it. The human figure struggled, but he did not have the time to walk out of the mountain wall. Bang. A golden fist directly smashed over, instantly shattering the human figure's head. Oh. With a flash, the person who swung the fist was a tall and sturdy golden-haired middle-aged man. This golden-haired middle-aged man's face was covered with a golden beard, but he looked like a living golden lion. The second one. The golden-haired middle-aged man looked at the silent mountain wall and the cold corpse in front of him, but his eyes were still extremely cold. He came from the Black Dragon Mountain. He was one of the two strongest false saints in the Black Dragon Mountain, excluding the old ancestor who was killed. During these 7 days, all he did was to travel around and search for the experts from the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance who participated in the assessment. During these 7 days, he met a total of 4 experts who were participating in the assessment. In the end, 2 of them managed to escape, while the remaining 2 were killed on the spot. Those who dared to participate in the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance assessment do indeed have some strength. Furthermore, all of them are not weak in life-saving abilities. During these 7 days I met a total of 4 people, but in the end I only managed to kill 2 people. The golden-haired middle-aged man was clearly not satisfied. Black Dragon Mountain's patriarch was killed on the spot by Yao Yu. Black Dragon Mountain would no longer exist in the future, which filled the golden-haired middle-aged man's heart with resentment and anger. He naturally wanted to vent this resentment and anger by killing the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance's experts who participated in the assessment. But in the end he only killed 2 people in 7 days. To him that was too little. In the remaining 3 days I have to think of a way to kill more. The golden-haired middle-aged man clenched his hands tightly and then flew to the side. As the golden-haired middle-aged man flew, he released his soul power, frantically searching for the traces of the surrounding experts. 2 hours later. The golden-haired middle-aged man's expression suddenly changed. He was already far away from the Divine Lord's aura that had appeared in the area covered by his soul. That Divine Lord's aura was extremely unfamiliar to him. Clearly it was not from his Black Dragon Mountain. Without hesitation, the golden-haired middle-aged man rushed toward the Holy Master at his fastest speed. He didn't escape? Did he not notice me? The distance between him and the Holy Master was getting closer and closer. In just a moment he had appeared in front of the Holy Master. Even though the Holy Master had seen him coming, he had no intention of escaping. Jian Wushuang stood quietly in the void with his arms crossed. He looked at the golden-haired middle-aged man with a faint smile on his face. This man has such a strong aura. He is much stronger than the hunchbacked elder and Jian whom I killed before. When all the experts of the Black Dragon Mountain gathered together, his aura was also very strong, only slightly weaker than the ancestor of the Black Dragon Mountain. It seems that he is one of the 2 top false saints of Black Dragon Mountain. Jian Wushuang thought to himself. He knew from that list that the Black Dragon Mountain now had 2 top false saints, each with a total of 50,000 points. Chapter 2944. Special Events. Boy from the Heaven-Slaying Alliance, you didn't run away when you saw me coming? Aren't you worried that it'll kill you? The golden-haired middle-aged man stared at Jian Wushuang with cold eyes. Not long ago, an immortal saint from the Black Dragon Mountain met me. He wanted to kill me, but he died in my hands. His name is Jian. You should know him, Jian Wushuang said with a faint smile. Jian? You killed junior brother Jian? The blond middle-aged man's expression changed. Jian Wushuang did not say anything. He just waved his hand and took out a token. This token was Jian's identity token. The blond middle-aged man only glanced at it and immediately recognized it. It really is junior brother Jian's identity token. You killed junior brother Jian, you deserve to die. The blond middle-aged man instantly became furious. A terrifying aura burst out from the golden-haired middle-aged man's body. The golden-haired middle-aged man was filled with towering hostility. His 2 palms were covered with golden fists. A golden light flashed and an ear-piercing air explosion was heard. The golden-haired middle-aged man had already appeared in front of Jian Wushuang, and the fists in his hands were also violently thrown at Jian Wushuang. Naturally, Jian Wushuang was not afraid at all. He immediately fought head-on with the golden-haired middle-aged man. The fighting continued in the Black Dragon Mountain. The enchantment that covered the entire Black Dragon Mountain still existed. As long as the enchantment existed, no one could escape from Black Dragon Mountain. There was a void outside the enchantment, and a magnificent tower was floating there quietly. On the top floor of the tower, 2 figures sat facing each other, sipping the fine wine in front of them. Yao Yu, what are you planning to do? The elegant purple-haired youth asked. Sitting opposite the purple-haired youth was Yao Yu, the heaven-rank member who had easily killed the Black Dragon Mountain's patriarch. However, Yao Yu was not wearing a mask at the moment, revealing an extremely beautiful face that could make one's mind waver. "There's no rush. It's not easy for me to come out. They'll wait for some time," Yao Yu said. "Is this all right? If I remember correctly, if that lord behind you knows that you secretly ran out, he will likely be a little unhappy." The purple-haired young man said playfully. "Who cares? That old fellow's character is extremely withdrawn. I'm different from him. If it wasn't for him forcing me back then, I wouldn't have been willing to be his disciple." Yao Yu said. "Haha, that lord's character is a little withdrawn. However, he treats your disciple quite well." The purple-haired young man laughed. Yao Yu and the purple-haired youth clearly knew each other, and they had a certain degree of friendship. The two chatted casually. But at this moment, dang dang dang, a gray-robed figure walked up the stairs anxiously and soon arrived in front of the two. "Lord, a special event has occurred in the Black Dragon Mountain." The gray-robed figure bowed respectfully. "Special event?" The purple-haired youth put down the wine cup in his hand and frowned slightly. "We have already thoroughly investigated the background of Black Dragon Mountain. After that ancestor was killed by me, this Black Dragon Mountain should no longer be able to cause any waves. Now that a special event has occurred, could it be those people who participated in the assessment?" Yao Yu said in surprise. "Why don't we go and take a look?" The purple-haired young man smiled. The two of them immediately stood up and walked downstairs. On the lower floor, in a dark space, several gray-robed men were gathered there. At the front of this space there were dozens of mirror images. Before the assessment began, the goateed old man had said that everything in the Black Dragon Mountain was under the surveillance of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. This was indeed true. The Heaven-Cleaving Alliance could see every corner of Black Dragon Mountain clearly through the barrier. Wherever there was an intense battle in Black Dragon Mountain, it could be seen from the mirror image in the dark space. When the purple-haired young man and Yao Yu came to this dark space, they were immediately attracted by the mirror image in front of them. In the mirror image there were two people fighting fiercely. They knew that one of the two people fighting fiercely was Jian, one of the two strongest top false saint experts in Black Dragon Mountain. But the other person? A god, a divine master? The purple-haired young man was extremely shocked. A divine master can fight head-on with a top false saint without being at a disadvantage? Yao Yu was also extremely shocked. What they saw was the battle between Jian Wushuang and the golden-haired middle-aged man. One was a superior false saint, and the other was only a divine master. The result of this battle should have been without any suspense. But now, how long have they been fighting? The purple-haired young man asked. "Sir, it has been a while." A gray-robed man next to him said respectfully. "We have found out that the divine master fighting with Jian is called Sword Heaven Marquis from the 385th lair. We have noticed him a few days ago." "A few days ago?" The purple-haired young man looked over in surprise. "Sir, a few days ago Heavenly Sword Marquis had already fought with the Immortal Saint in Black Dragon Mountain. He has already killed 2 Immortal Saints. One of the 2 Immortal Saints is also participating in this assessment. His strength is average, but the other is an Immortal Saint from Black Dragon Mountain. His name is Golden Mountain. When Heavenly Sword Marquis killed the 2 of them, he displayed extremely strong battle strength. But because the Immortal Saints he killed were not very strong, we paid special attention to it but did not report it to you. But just now, Sword Heavenly Marquis fought with Golden Lion of Black Dragon Mountain. We immediately came to report it," the gray-robed man said. The purple-haired young man nodded slightly. Although he was in charge of the assessment, as long as there were no major changes in the assessment process, he would not give it to the gray-robed men. These gray-robed men also knew their own judgment. Only when there was something really important, that was why he told him. Although Jian Wushuang had shown great strength when he killed the 2 Immortal Saints, they were not so shocked that they did not report it to the purple-haired young man. But now it was different. After all, the Golden Lion is a genuine top false saint. A deity was able to fight a peak false saint head-on without losing. Such strength was rare even in the vast absolute beginning divine realm. "Yao Yu, what do you think?" The purple-haired young man looked at Yao Yu. "Sword Heavenly Marquis is indeed very impressive. From the techniques he has displayed, his basic divine power is extremely strong, not inferior to an ordinary false saint. The reason why he could fight against Golden Lion like this is because his comprehension of the sword principle is extremely high." Yao Yu exclaimed. "His comprehension of sword Tao is too high. If I'm not wrong, not only has he nurtured the boundless sword tree, but it has also grown to a height of at least 20,000 feet, or even 30,000 feet. Otherwise, his sword arts would not be so powerful." Chapter 2945, Beheading from the battle between Jian Wushuang and Jin Shi, he could see that Jian Wushuang's basic divine power, comprehension of rules, and even the creation of absolute arts were inferior to Jin Shi's. The reason why he could confront Jin Shi head-on was that the point is that his understanding of sword Dao was too high. With a high understanding of swordsmanship, the power of his swordsmanship would naturally skyrocket. To be able to match Jin Shi, Jian Wushuang's boundless sword tree should be about 30,000 feet tall. And her judgment was spot on. Jian Wushuang's boundless sword tree was 33,000 feet tall, but it was not because his understanding of the sword principle was too high. He had just bred the boundless sword tree not long ago, but because his physique was different, his starting point was too high. Many people had only grown the boundless sword tree to the limit of 33,000 feet, but once he gave birth to the boundless sword tree, it was 33,000 feet tall. Although his comprehension of the sword principle was not very high, when the 33,000 feet tall boundless sword tree was activated, the power of his swordsmanship increased. A mere divine master's comprehension of the sword principle is actually so high. It's simply unbelievable. In addition, he is also extremely outstanding in other aspects. All in all, he definitely has the qualifications to enter the heaven and earth palace of our heaven-cleaving alliance. If his comprehension of the rules were to improve slightly, it would not be a problem for him to enter the primitive palace, said Yao Yu. Haha, I think so too. With his current strength, he can barely enter the primitive palace. I didn't expect that you and I could meet such a genius just because we went on a mission out of boredom. The primitive palace, even you and I are only members of the heaven and earth palace. There is still some distance to go before we can enter the primitive palace. As for the heavenly sword marquis, the purple-haired young man did not finish his words. Don't worry. Let's wait and see. I have a feeling that heavenly sword marquis hasn't gone all out, Yao Yu said. He hasn't gone all out? The purple-haired young man's expression changed, and he immediately looked at the mirror image in front of him. In the mirror image it was in Black Dragon Mountain. Bang. With a loud bang, Jian Wushuang and Jin Shi were both pushed back. Jin Shi's aura was cold and his eyes were burning with anger. He stared at Jian Wushuang, but he was also shocked. A divine master is so strong? Jin Shi was indeed shocked. He now believed that Jin Shan had indeed died at the hands of this divine master. Because this divine master's battle strength was definitely comparable to an ordinary peak false saint. Your strength is not bad. You are much stronger than Jin Shan. You are a good opponent to train your swordsmanship. Jian Wushuang held his sword with one hand and looked at Jin Shi with a faint smile. Train your swordsmanship? Jin Shi's expression changed. Do you think him your opponent to train your swordsmanship? Yes. Jian Wushuang smiled. Unfortunately, your strength is still weak and you can't really put pressure on me. The effect of the training is minimal. In that case, I don't need to waste time with you. They'll kill you directly. Kill me directly? How arrogant. Jin Shi snorted with disdain in his heart. Jian Wushuang did not waste any more words. His body shook, and immediately majestic golden divine power began to gather crazily behind him. In the blink of an eye, a 30,000-meter tall golden emperor phantom appeared behind him. The 7-star secret skill and the 9 luminary star armor were immediately used. In just a moment, Jian Wushuang had used all 3 of his secret skills, and his battle strength had soared to a whole new level. In the outside world, when he fought with Shuedong King, who had also reached the peak of the pseudo-saint realm and was infinitely close to the true saint realm, he had only used the 7-star secret skill to gain the upper hand. But now he had used all 3 secret skills at the same time. As expected, Heavenly Sword Marquis still has some tricks up his sleeve. His aura has improved a lot. I feel that he is much stronger than before. In the tower outside the enchantment, the purple-haired young man and Yao Ye's pupils shrank when they saw this scene. As for Jin Shi, although he felt that Jian Wushuang's aura had improved greatly, he did not pay much attention to it. Boy, no matter what, you are only a divine master. I don't believe that you can really overturn the heavens. Jin Shi shouted. Golden light burst out from his body, and in an instant he turned into a huge golden beast and crazily attacked Jian Wushuang. Before he got close to Jian Wushuang, the shocking evil aura swept over him. Looking at the crazy Jin Shi, Jian Wushuang just smiled faintly and waved his sleeve. Streams of black light burst out instantly. These black streams of light were 18 underworld blood divine swords with astonishing auras. As soon as the 18 underworld blood divine swords appeared, they immediately merged perfectly with Jian Wushuang's control at the fastest speed. Buzz. A faint humming sound like the sound of a sword slowly sounded in the world. Although the sound was not loud, it was extremely strange. In the void, a brand new black divine sword that was only 2 meters long but extremely wide appeared out of thin air. The moment this 2-meter-long black divine sword appeared, buzz 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 buzz, the surrounding world suddenly turned gray. This gray-white seemed to have fallen into a boundless sea of snow, and everywhere was a vast expanse of white. In this vast expanse of white, the only black color that stood in opposition was the black divine sword in the center of the void. The black magic sword had become the only focus in the world. The fourth level of the Samsara sword formation, the world of ice and snow, had taken shape. Go! Jian Wushuang pointed. The black magic sword instantly turned into black lightning and shot out. In an instant, it appeared in front of Jianshi. Jianshi's eyes were red, and there was endless golden divine power gathering in his right palm. Suddenly he swung his right arm, and a golden fist smashed out like a golden meteorite falling from the sky. The black divine sword stabbed crazily. Bang! With a loud sound, a terrifying power spread out and shattered everything in the surroundings. In the middle of the collision, Jianshi's body shook, and his aura instantly weakened, with faint blood flowing out of his mouth. It was obvious that he had been completely crushed in this head-on collision. Die! Killing intent flashed in Jian Wushuang's eyes. The black divine sword did not stop for a moment, but it shot out again and directly hit Jianshi's divine body. Jianshi's body was covered with protective armor. He seemed uninjured, but the inside of his divine body had been shattered. A peak false saint had died on the spot. Chapter 2946, Primal Chaos Palace, dead? A peak false saint was killed just like that? In the tower, the purple-haired youth and demonic Jade looked at the scene in the mirror image in shock. A peak false saint was indeed nothing to them. They could easily kill him. But now the one who killed Jianshi was only a divine master. A divine master could kill a peak false saint, and from the looks of it, Jian Wushuang seemed to have it easy. True saint, Sword Heavenly Marquis definitely has the battle strength of a true saint. Yao Yu shouted. Yes, once he showed his strength, he activated the sword formation and seriously injured Jianshi with one attack. The second time he killed Jianshi. Only a true saint has such strength. And even among first-rank true saints, Sword Heavenly Marquis is not weak, the purple-haired youth said. The Primitive Palace. He can definitely enter the Primitive Palace. Without a doubt, he is definitely one of the top existences in the Primitive Palace. If he improves a little in terms of the rules, he might even be able to enter the Primal Chaos Palace. Yao Yu said solemnly. Primal Chaos Palace. The purple-haired young man's heart could not help but be shocked. Both of them had extraordinary backgrounds and knew more about Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. The Heaven-Cleaving Alliance had 3 palaces, which were used by the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance to cultivate top geniuses. These 3 palaces were the Heaven and Earth Palace, the Primitive Palace, and the Primal Chaos Palace. Among them, the Heaven-Earth Palace had the lowest level, and the level of geniuses was also the lowest. However, even the lowest Heaven and Earth Palace could not be entered by ordinary people. It had to be the top genius of the divine beginning world. Take a divine master for example. If this divine master wanted to enter the Heaven and Earth Palace, he had to at least kill an ordinary immortal saint. This was only the lowest standard. Some of the top geniuses in the Heaven and Earth Palace could kill peak false saints at the Divine Master level. As for the Primitive Palace, it was higher than the Heaven and Earth Palace, so the level of geniuses was naturally higher. When they saw that Jian Wushuang was able to fight Jianshi head-on, they were certain that Jian Wushuang could definitely enter the Heaven and Earth Palace. However, they said that Jian Wushuang's comprehension of the rules was higher, so he could enter the Primitive Palace. It showed how high the threshold of the Primitive Palace was. If the geniuses of the Primitive Palace were to take the Divine Master as an example, he could definitely cross ranks to challenge a peak false saint, or even defeat a peak false saint. As for killing a peak false saint, only the top geniuses of the Primitive Palace could do it. However, Jian Wushuang had not only killed Jianshi, but he had also killed him easily. He had driven the Reincarnation Sword formation and killed Jianshi with 2 strikes. It was a complete slaughter. With such strength, the purple-haired young man and Yao Yu believed that Jian Wushuang was qualified to enter the higher level of the Primal Chaos Palace. The Primal Chaos Palace was a place where monsters were nurtured. Anyone who could enter the Primal Chaos Palace would be the most terrifying monsters in the divine beginning world. Any one of them was enough to make all the forces in the absolute divine beginning world fight for it. For example, among the top forces like the 3 great holy regions, the 4 great divine races, and the 8 directions heavenly sect in the vast third sky, there were only a handful of such monsters. And within the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, there was a rumor regarding the Primal Chaos Palace. It said that as long as a genius who came out of the Primal Chaos Palace did not die midway, the weakest one would be the Master of Laws. Because of this, the purple-haired young man and Yao Yu were full of yearning for the Primal Chaos Palace. Unfortunately, although they were geniuses, they could only try to break into the Primal Chaos Palace. The Primal Chaos Palace was too far away for them. Long Yun, we should immediately report the matter of Heavenly Marquee Sword to the existence behind us or the highest level of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. We should try our best to absorb such a top genius, Yao Yu said. Don't be anxious. Long Yun waved his hand. Let's not report it yet. After this assessment is over, you and I will go and talk to the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. You and I will go? You mean? Yao Yu's expression changed. Hee, if we recruit a top genius like the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, no matter which palace he goes to, as long as he shows his strength, you and I will receive a huge reward. However, if we report this matter to the person behind us and ask the higher-ups of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance to recruit him and negotiate with him, we will still receive benefits, but not as much, Long Yun said. Understood. Yao Yu nodded slightly. He also understood Long Yun's meaning. The two of them took the initiative to approach and agreed on the terms. It would be best if they personally brought Heavenly Sword Marquee to the 3 palaces of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. That way, as long as Heavenly Sword Marquee revealed his strength, they would receive a huge reward. However, if it was just to report the news, they would definitely not receive so many things. In comparison, they would definitely choose the former. Let's wait for a while. The assessment will be over in 3 days. Let's wait here for 3 days. Long Yun smiled and was obviously very happy. In the Black Dragon Mountain, Jian Wushuang did not know what happened in the outside world, nor did he know that Long Yun and Yao Yu were shocked by what happened to him. He just did what he wanted to do. In the battle with Jianshi, he did have the intention of honing his swordsmanship. After all, his swordsmanship had a lot of room to grow. After honing his swordsmanship, he killed Jianshi and gained a lot of wealth from Jianshi. This was a big harvest. Then he continued to wander around the Black Dragon Mountain, searching for the immortal saints. However, there were many divine masters among the remaining experts in Black Dragon Mountain, but Jian Wushuang was not interested in divine masters at all. However, there were not many immortal saints. He had killed 2 of the 11 immortal saints, and only 9 of them were wandering around the Black Dragon Mountain. Some of them were hiding, which made it difficult for Jian Wushuang to find them. Time passed and the last 3 days passed in a flash. Jian Wushuang did not make any more moves during the last 3 days. Since then, the 10-day deadline had come to an end. Jian Wushuang and the others stopped their search and began to return to the previous gathering point. As for the experts who were lucky enough to survive in Black Dragon Mountain, they were very happy. They were glad that they had survived the 10-day hunt. As long as they survived these 10 days, they would be able to live according to what the goateed elder had said. Of course they were happy. On the Black Dragon Mountain, in front of the huge black mountain that had been split in half, the experts who had come to participate in the assessment gathered once again. Chapter 2947. Lord Long Yun, there are so few people. Jian Wushuang looked around. There were originally 27 divine masters participating in this assessment, and almost all of them were invincible divine masters. However, after 10 days only 12 of them including Jian Wushuang were still alive, less than half of them. Only 3 of the 5 immortal saints survived, and 2 of them died in the same test. Of course, one of the 2 immortal saints was killed by Jian Wushuang. Although the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance test is not very stressful for me, it is very dangerous for ordinary invincible divine masters, Jian Wushuang thought. He could imagine it. Although the Black Dragon Mountain Patriarch had been killed, there were still 11 immortal saints scattered on the land. The divine masters who participated in the assessment had to find a way to kill the divine masters of Black Dragon Mountain and get enough points, but they had to be careful not to be targeted by the 11 immortal saints of Black Dragon Mountain. It was indeed very difficult. It was remarkable that they could survive these 10 days and get enough points to complete any divine master. Take out all the identity tokens you've got, the goateed elder said. The experts present immediately took out the 10 days gains. Jian Wushuang also took out some identity tokens, but he knew what to do. He only took out a small part, which was enough for him to pass the test. As for the remaining identity tokens, he put them in his interspatial ring. As for the final result, out of the 3 immortal saints, only one of them got 50,000 points and passed the test. The remaining 2 had fewer points. As for the 12 surviving divine masters including Jian Wushuang, 10 of them got enough points. Only 2 of them were unlucky and got fewer points. It could be seen that compared to the immortal saint, the probability of a divine master passing the assessment was higher. Those who pass the assessment will be ordinary members of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance from today onwards. You can enjoy the treatment of ordinary members of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. Here are your identity tokens and costumes. Come up and take them one by one, the goateed elder said. The immortal saint and the 10 divine masters who had passed the assessment stepped forward one by one and took an identity token and a set of clothes from the goateed elder. Well, the assessment is over. Except for you, the rest of you can leave through the spatial passage. The goateed elder pointed at a person. The person being pointed at was Jian Wushuang. The people around quickly left through the space passage, leaving Jian Wushuang alone. Jian Wushuang had a strange look on his face. He did not know why the goateed elder wanted to leave him alone. Heavenly Sword Marquis, there is a lord in the Heaven-Slaying Alliance who wants to see you. The goateed elder looked at Jian Wushuang with a gentle smile. A lord wants to see me? Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. Come with me, the goateed elder said and then led the way. Although Jian Wushuang felt strange, he still followed the goateed elder. Because the assessment had ended, the great barrier that had always existed in Black Dragon Mountain had disappeared. The goateed elder took Jian Wushuang away from the land of Black Dragon Mountain and came to a tall tower in the surrounding void. The goateed elder led Jian Wushuang into the tower and soon arrived at the top floor. There were 2 people waiting for him on the top floor. When they saw Jian Wushuang come in, they immediately came up to him. Heavenly Sword Marquis, let me introduce you. This is Lord Shuiyu, whom you have met before. The goateed elder pointed at the beautiful young woman. Lord Shuiyu. Jian Wushuang bowed slightly to show his respect. He had indeed seen Shuiyu before, and he had also seen her kill the patriarch of Black Dragon Mountain with a thunderbolt. However, at that time Shuiyu was wearing a mask, but now she was not. Heavenly Sword Marquis, you are too polite. I didn't expect you to be so powerful when we met before. Shuiyu smiled slightly. This is Lord Long Yun. The goateed elder pointed at the purple-haired youth. Both Lord Long Yun and Lord Shuiyu are top geniuses in the Heaven-Slaying Alliance. They are real geniuses. Lord Long Yun. Jian Wushuang also bowed to Long Yun. Haha, I don't dare to call myself a genius in front of you. You don't have to call me Lord. Just call me by my name. Long Yun was very enthusiastic. At the same time, he glanced at the goateed elder. You can go down first. Let us talk alone. Yes. The goateed elder nodded and immediately turned to leave. Only Jian Wushuang, Long Yun, and Yao Yu were left in the space on the top floor of the attic. Brother Tianhuo, take a seat. Long Yun waved his hand. Jian Wushuang did not stand on ceremony and directly sat down beside a long table. To tell you the truth, I specially invited you here for one reason. Long Yun did not beat around the bush. Instead, he directly stated his intention. I want to invite you to join the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance and become a member of the 3 palaces. Join the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance? Jian Wushuang was puzzled. I have passed the assessment of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. Am I not an ordinary member now? That's different. Long Yun shook his head. The Heaven-Cleaving Alliance is an extremely loose alliance with almost no restrictions. Many members of the alliance joined the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance for their own interests, and so is your status as an ordinary member now, Brother Heavenly Sword Marquis. And by joining, I mean truly joining the core of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance and becoming a core member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. Core. Jian Wushuang was stunned. Isn't it said that the original level above the Emperor level is the core of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance? Haha, Brother Heavenly Sword Marquis, the so-called original level members are the core of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. This is just a rumor from the outside world. In fact, the core of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance does not distinguish between realms. It depends on their talent and strength. As long as the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance believes that an immortal saint or even a divine master has great potential, he can become the core of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. That's why there are 3 palaces in the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, Long Yun said. 3 palaces? Which 3 palaces? Jian Wushuang asked. The Heaven-Earth Palace, the Primitive Palace and the Primal Chaos Palace, Long Yun began to explain to Jian Wushuang. He told Jian Wushuang about the basic situation of the 3 palaces, including their significance and the level of geniuses. Chapter 2948, Rejection. After listening to Long Yun's detailed explanation, Jian Wushuang had a certain understanding of the 3 palaces. To put it bluntly, the 3 palaces were specifically used by the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance to cultivate geniuses and monsters. The Heaven-Cleaving Alliance's forces were spread across every corner of the Primordial Palace, and there were countless experts who joined the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. However, these experts were very loose and there were no restrictions. Among the experts who joined the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, it was inevitable that there would be some extremely outstanding geniuses who were monsters. To these top geniuses and monsters, the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance would send out an invitation, asking them to join the three palaces. Once they entered these three palaces, they could receive the greatest degree of cultivation in the entire absolute beginning divine realm. There were countless resources and treasures, and because they had everything, they could allow this genius monster's strength to increase at the fastest speed. However, there were two sides to everything. If he wanted to enter the three palaces and receive the best cultivation, then from now on, this genius would truly belong to the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. Although he did not have to be absolutely loyal to the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, he had to contribute some strength to the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. Brother Tianhuo, during the 10 days you roamed the Black Dragon Mountain, Shuiyu and I saw your performance clearly through the enchantment, including the fact that you killed the peak false Saint Jian of the Black Dragon Mountain. Long Yun looked at Jian Wushuang solemnly. You are only a divine master, but you have the battle strength of a true saint. Your comprehension of the sword principle is so high that you have already surpassed many true saints. With such talent, Shuiyu and I are sure that you can enter the primordial palace of the three palaces. You can even enter the Primal Chaos Palace if you try your best to improve the rules. That's the Primal Chaos Palace. Even if our Heaven-Cleaving Alliance gathers all the countless geniuses in the absolute beginning divine realm, there are only a few dozen people who can enter the Primal Chaos Palace to cultivate in each era. If these people walk out from the Primal Chaos Palace in the future, as long as they don't die midway, 99% of them can become masters of laws. Even Shuiyu and I yearn for such a place. Long Yun exclaimed, and Shuiyu, who was beside him, also showed a fanatical look. After a long while, Long Yun calmed down a little and asked, Brother Heavenly Marquis, how about it? Do you want to go to the core level of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance with me? Long Yun looked at Jian Wushuang with a look of anticipation. Hearing his words, Jian Wushuang thought for a while and then shook his head. I'm sorry, but I refuse. What? Long Yun's face changed. Shuiyu, who was standing next to him, also looked at him in surprise. The Heaven-Cleaving Alliance had three palaces, and it was the second-ranked primitive palace. It might even be the highest-level Primal Chaos Palace. It was the cultivation holy land that countless top geniuses in the divine beginning world dreamed of. Countless experts fought for the chance to enter the three palaces, but they could not. But now, such a good opportunity was presented to them. As long as Jian Wushuang agreed to go with them, they guaranteed that Jian Wushuang would definitely be able to enter the primitive palace. But Jian Wushuang actually refused? Brother Heavenly Marquis, you have to think carefully. The Heaven-Cleaving Alliance is the publicly recognized #1 alliance in the divine beginning world. We have the strength and means to reach the heavens. And the three palaces, any one of them is the dream of countless geniuses, especially the primitive palace and the chaos palace. Like me and Shuiyu, we are both top geniuses. Take Shuiyu for example. She is only a rank 1 true saint and has just broken through to the rank 1 true saint realm. She has just mastered the immortal body, but her battle strength is strong enough to rival an ordinary rank 3 true saint. With such strength, she can only stay in the Heaven-Earth Palace. At the very least, you can join the primitive palace. This is a once-in-lifetime opportunity, Long Yun said anxiously. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang was a little surprised. What surprised him was Shuiyu's strength. Previously, he knew that Shuiyu was a heaven-grade member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance and was very strong. This could be seen from the fact that she easily killed the Patriarch of the Black Dragon Mountain. However, Jian Wushuang did not expect that Shuiyu was only a rank 1 true saint who had just mastered the immortal body. He was a rank 1 true saint who had just broken through, but his battle strength was comparable to an ordinary rank 3 true saint. His talent was impressive. However, Shuiyu was only a member of the Heaven-Earth Palace, which was the lowest level among the three palaces. From this, it could be seen how great the talent level of the Primitive Palace and the Chaos Palace was. It was impossible for Jian Wushuang not to be tempted by such a cultivation holy land, which had gathered so many top geniuses of the Primitive Palace. Unfortunately, Jian Wushuang also had his own concerns and thoughts. Firstly, he did not want to have too many restrictions. Joining the three palaces of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance would indeed allow him to receive the most training, but at the same time, he would become a member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance and would have to work for the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance in the future. Secondly, and most importantly, he did not know the position and nature of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance at all. To be more precise, he did not know which side the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance was on. One had to know that his identity was very sensitive. The will of the Heavenly Tao clearly did not want him to live in this world. In the third heaven, the three great holy regions, the four great divine races, and the 8 Directions Heavenly Sect all wanted him dead. And the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, as the publicly acknowledged #1 alliance in the absolute beginning divine realm, what position did he stand on? Was he on the side of the will of the Heavenly Tao, the 3 great holy regions, the 4 great divine races, and the 8 Directions Heavenly Sect, or was he on the opposite side of the will of the Heavenly Tao? It was similar to the 7-star mysterious sect, or it was neutral. Jian Wushuang knew nothing about this. Under such circumstances, why would he want to go to the core of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance? Although the name of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance should not be on the same side as the will of heaven, what if? If the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance was on the same side as the will of the Heavenly Tao, would it not be suicidal for him to go to the core of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance? In conclusion, even though he had some desire for the cultivation geniuses of the 3 palaces, he rejected them without hesitation. Sir Long Yun, Sir Shuiyu, I'm sorry. I'm not really interested in the 3 palaces you mentioned. Jian Wushuang rejected them again and stood up. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first. Long Yun frowned but soon relaxed. Well, since Brother Tianhuo doesn't want to join, I won't force you. But there's a token here. I hope you can keep it. In the future, if you come to your senses or meet with any trouble, you can contact me through this token. Seeing Long Yun take out the token, Jian Wushuang hesitated for a moment and took it. Then he turned around and left. Chapter 2949. Secret Domain. Seeing Jian Wushuang completely disappear from their sight, Long Yun and Shuiyu both looked a bit unsightly. He refused? How could Heavenly Sword Marquis refuse to enter the primitive palace? Shuiyu frowned and seemed to be in disbelief. Perhaps what we said was not comprehensive enough to truly move him. We had no choice but to report this matter to the higher-ups of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance and have them personally invite people to talk to him, Long Yun said. Is it useful for the higher-ups to look for him? Shuiyu was puzzled. I don't know, but it has nothing to do with us. As long as we report the news of the discovery of this peerless genius, we will be able to receive a big reward, Long Yun said. That's true. Shuiyu nodded slightly. The primitive palace, or even the primal chaos palace, is like a pie falling from the sky to us, but Heavenly Sword Marquis doesn't care at all. Is really? Long Yun and Shuiyu were secretly amazed. The 385th nest of the Heaven-Slaying Alliance was also the nest Jian Wushuang had been in before. Jian Wushuang returned to the nest after completing the assessment. In the hall, Shuedong King was still waiting. When he saw Jian Wushuang walk out of the inner hall, Shuedong King immediately went up to him. Haha, Brother Tianhuo, you came out so quickly? Shuedong King smiled and asked, how about the assessment? What do you think? Jian Wushuang gently waved a token in his hand. This token was his identity token. Haha, I knew it would be a piece of cake for you to pass the assessment with your strength. Shuedong King laughed and was not surprised at all. Come on, tell me, what did you encounter in this assessment? Jian Wushuang and Shuedong King sat down at the table next to them, and then Jian Wushuang also briefly explained the contents of the test. Thanks, there are actually 11 immortal saints alive in Black Dragon Mountain. Under such circumstances, it's really difficult for you to think of a way to kill those immortal saints in Black Dragon Mountain. Shuedong King pursed his lips and said, it can't be helped. This is the test of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. Although this task is difficult, many people have passed it. Jian Wushuang said with a smile. By the way, Brother Heavenly Marquis, since you have passed this test and you have officially become an ordinary member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, then the 3-star task we talked about before? Shuedong King looked at Jian Wushuang with eager eyes. No problem. When will you set off? Jian Wushuang asked with a smile. He had promised Shuedong King that he would go on an ordinary 3-star mission with him. Although it was only an ordinary mission, it was not too difficult since it had reached the 3-star level. Haha, there's no rush. Let's have a drink first. In addition, I'll tell you the details of this mission before we set off, Shuedong King said with a smile. Jian Wushuang nodded and then listened to Shuedong King's explanation. An hour later, Jian Wushuang and Shuedong King both accepted the mission and set off together. The Dark Shout Realm was a medium-sized realm. This was the location of Jian Wushuang and Shuedong King's mission, which was also the lair of the 3 Saints of Shadow. At the edge of the Dark Shout Realm, there was a huge restriction that completely sealed the entire realm. Although the area covered by the restriction was huge, it was not very powerful. It could block ordinary divine masters, but to the immortal saint, it was just a decoration. At this moment, Jian Wushuang and Shuedong King had already arrived at the periphery of the restriction. Shadow 3 Saints have already turned the Dark Shout Realm into their own paradise. Not only have they completely closed the spatial passage of this realm, but they have also used a restriction to cover the entire Dark Shout realm. If we want to enter the Dark Shout realm, we have to forcibly break through this restriction. Although it's not difficult to break through this restriction, once we do, 3 Shadow Saints will definitely notice and know of our arrival, Shuedong King said. Next to him stood a figure wearing a gray robe and a gray mask. His aura was extremely cold and evil. This figure was Jian Wushuang. He had changed into the unique attire of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance and used the gray mask to turn himself into such a cold and evil figure. If you know, then you know. The 3 Shadow Saints are not weak. Even if they know that we are coming, they probably won't be too afraid. After all, in their eyes, I'm just a divine master and won't be a threat to them. As for you, Shuedong King, although you're very strong, the 3 of them can fight together. They won't be so scared that they will hide or run away, Jian Wushuang said. Well, in that case, let's force our way in. Shuedong King nodded. Immediately, Shuedong King waved his hand, and the terrifying divine power immediately tore a big hole in the restriction in front of them. Then Jian Wushuang and Shuedong King directly entered the Dark Shout realm. In the center of the Dark Shout realm there was a huge swamp. The swamp was filled with a faint earthen yellow air current. In the deepest part of the swamp, there was a towering but huge temple. This divine hall was the Shadow Hall where the 3 Shadow Saints lived. At this moment, in the depths of the Shadow Hall, 3 human figures were gathered together. Haha, 1 month. Just 1 more month and the Earth God fruit will ripen. It's been too long. Since the 3 of us discovered the Earth God fruit, it's been more than 100,000 years. During these 100,000 years, the 3 of us have been guarding here and haven't left for even a moment. In order to cover up the news of this Earth God fruit, we had to use all kinds of methods to completely seal this dark domain. We were afraid that other experts would come and discover the existence of this Earth God fruit. And now, our boring waiting days are coming to an end. 1 month, just 1 more month. The 3 shadows were obviously very excited. In the outside world, it was said that the 3 shadows had sealed the Dark Shout realm because of their evil natures. They wanted to turn the Dark Shout realm into their paradise and enslave all the cultivators in this realm. However, that was not the case. They only had one true goal, and that was the Earth God fruit that was about to mature in the Dark Shout realm. The Earth God fruit is an excellent treasure that cultivates the laws of the earth. Its value is shocking, and it's enough to make many true saints fight for it, especially those who comprehend the laws of the earth. Among the 3 Shadow Saint, a cold old man in a gray robe was smiling sinisterly. Chapter 2950. 3 Sages of the Shadow. As far as I know, the only true saint in this territory is someone who understands the laws of the earth. If he knew that there was an Earth God fruit here, he would definitely rush over like crazy. Unfortunately, he doesn't know about this place at all. The cold old man said with a cold smile. The value of this Earth God fruit is shocking. If we had a good channel, we could definitely sell it for an astronomical price. The true saint in our surrounding territory is only a first-level true saint. How could he have the qualifications to possess such a good treasure? Another black-haired skinny man said in a low voice. No matter what, we only need to wait here for a month. After a month, when the Earth God fruit ripens, we will think of a way to sell it. Then we will be rich. The last fat bald youth said with a strange smile. The 3 of them chatted leisurely. At this moment, oh. The 3's expressions suddenly changed. The restriction that covered the entire Dark Shout realm was set up by the 3 of them together. When this restriction was torn apart, the 3 of them simultaneously sensed it. Someone tore apart the restriction and directly barged in, the gloomy and cold old man said in a deep voice. The restriction set up by the 3 of us might cover a large area, but no one below the undying sage should be able to break it. Now that it's been torn open, the immortal saint must have taken action, the black-haired skinny man said in a cold voice. 3rd brother, take a careful look. Okay. The chubby bald youth nodded. Then he closed his eyes and began to investigate. The restrictions of the 3 of them were formed with the bald youth as the core. The bald youth was able to merge into the restrictions and clearly see the area that had been torn apart. I saw it. There are 2 people who have torn apart the restrictions. If nothing unexpected happens, one of them should be the Shuedong King, the bald youth said. Shuedong King? Tim? The cold old man and the black-haired skinny man frowned. Shuedong King had a strange temper and was extremely powerful. Not only was he famous in the Inkstone realm, but he was also quite famous in the surrounding realms. This was especially true after Shuedong King had broken through to become an immortal saint. His strength had soared and his name had naturally become even more famous. Although the 3 of them had stayed in the Dark Shout realm all year round to wait, they still maintained contact with the outside world. Naturally, they had heard of this Shuedong king. We don't have any entanglements with this Shuedong king. What is he doing here? Moreover, it has to be at this time? The black-haired skinny man said in a deep voice. Third brother, you just said that there were two people who came together. Where is the other one? The cold-looking elder asked. There is another person wearing a gray robe and a gray mask on his face. From the looks of it, he should also be a member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, the bald youth said. Heaven-Cleaving Alliance? The cold elder was immediately shocked. However, the aura emitted by this person from the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance is only at the Divine Master level. There's no need to pay any attention to him, the bald youth said. Divine Master? The cold elder looked over in surprise. Third brother, look carefully. Is that person really just a Divine Master? Of course, I saw him very clearly. Moreover, with my perceptive ability, even an ordinary first-level true saint wouldn't be able to conceal his aura in front of me. It's impossible for him to conceal his aura, the bald youth said with certainty. If that's the case, then it's still fine. The cold old man and the black-haired skinny man both let out a sigh of relief. If the person who had arrived was the Shuedong king, an immortal saint whose strength was unknown in the outside world, then they would definitely be nervous, worried that the Shuedong king duo would attack them. However, now that they knew that the person who had come with the Shuedong king was only a divine master, there was nothing to worry about. Although Shuedong king's strength was extraordinary and he was extremely strong among the peak false saints, very close to the true saints, with the combined strength of the three of them, they could still contend against him. If they used a few more tricks, they were even confident that they could beat Shuedong king back. Because of this, they were not worried about Shuedong king at all. As for the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance expert who came with Shuedong king, he was just a mere divine master. Even if he was a peak invincible divine master, they would not care too much about him. Such a lineup would only make them treat him seriously, but it would not make them choose to run for their lives. No matter what, at this juncture Shuedong king and Shuedong king came uninvited. We still have to be careful. Third brother, use your restriction to hide the earth god fruit. Don't let them see any clues when you go, said the cold old man. Don't worry. With me here, even if he uses his soul power, he won't be able to find anything, the bald youth said with a smile. That's good. Let's go and welcome him, the cold elder said. Immediately, the three of them went to the sky above the swamp and waited there quietly. Jian Wushuang and Shuedong king tore the restriction and entered the dark shout domain. They flew toward the center and soon arrived above the swamp. Sure enough, the three shadow saints knew we were coming and were already waiting there. Jian Wushuang looked ahead and could clearly see the three figures standing in the void. Humph, these three guys are really bold. They knew we were coming and were probably looking for trouble, but they didn't run away. They are courting death. Shuedong king sneered. They are courting death. Jian Wushuang also sneered. In the blink of an eye, the two people had already appeared in front of the third saint. The third saint stood proudly in the void. When he saw Jian Wushuang and Shuedong king, he was not nervous or afraid at all. Shuedong king, and this friend from the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, may I know why you have come to my secret realm? The leader of the third saint shadow, the cold elder, asked indifferently. Our purpose is very simple. We only have one purpose. That is to send you three brothers to the road of the underworld and make a trip there, Shuedong king said directly. Send us to the road of the underworld? The three shadow saints' faces immediately turned cold. Shuedong king, you are too arrogant. Not long ago you were just a divine master. Even if you have some strength, you are just an ant in front of us three brothers. Now, although you have reached the immortal saint realm and your battle strength is much stronger than before, you can't take advantage of us alone, can you? The cold elder said in a low voice. Haha, that may not be the case. The corners of Shuedong king's mouth curled up slightly. He glanced at Jian Wushuang and said softly, Brother Tianhuo, I'll test the strength of the three shadow saints first. Wait until it's about time for you to watch, then attack. Okay. Jian Wushuang nodded. Chapter 2951. Looking down on me? Haha, three shadow saints, allow me to meet you. Maniacal laughter reverberated in the air. Boom. A terrifying aura erupted from Shuedong king's body, and he dashed out, a long green saber appearing in his hand. Following the sound of rushing wind, the long green saber slashed out like a bolt of green lightning with mighty momentum. Attack together and kill him. The leader of the three shadow saints, the cold old man, shouted. Instantly, three auras at the level of immortal saints rose up. None of these three auras could compare to Shuedong king, but at this moment the three of them were working together. Moreover, the three Shadow Saints had lived together for a long time, fighting and fighting together. Their cooperation had reached an extremely tacit level. When they worked together, they were not afraid of any top false saint. Bang, 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 bang. A low sound of collision and explosion was heard in the void. Each time they collided, a violent wave of air swept out crazily in the surroundings. Jian Wushuang stood at the edge and looked at the battlefield in front of him. He had no intention of attacking. As I expected, Shuedong King had hidden a lot of his strength when he fought with me. His real combat strength is definitely the strongest among the top false saints. He is infinitely close to an ordinary true saint. However, the strength of the three Shadow Saints is not weak. If the three of them were to split up, their combat strength would only be at the level of an ordinary immortal saint. However, with the three of them working together, they can fight head-on with Shuedong King. Jian Wushuang praised. He could clearly see that on the battlefield, the Shuedong King and the three Shadow Saints had already used all their strength, but the two sides were evenly matched. In terms of advantage, the Shuedong King barely had an advantage, but this advantage was negligible. Moreover, the three Shadow Saints seemed to have a trump card that they had yet to use. Haha, Shuedong King, I admit that your strength is tyrannical. In the many surrounding domains, other than that lord who has already reached the true saint level, I'm afraid that no one is your match. Unfortunately, your strength is only about the same as the three of us brothers. Do you want to kill us? You're simply dreaming. The gloomy and cold old man laughed loudly. Shuedong King's face darkened, but he also shook his head and felt helpless. Indeed, I can't do anything to you three alone, but am not the only one here. Shuedong King grinned and looked at Jian Wushuang. Brothers of the Heavenly Marquis, let's kill them together. The three shadows immediately looked at Jian Wushuang with disdain in their eyes. From the beginning to the end, they did not take Jian Wushuang, a divine master, seriously. However, Jian Wushuang smiled faintly and thought to himself, these three brothers are not weak. If I fight them head-on, he'll have to spend some means to kill them. In that case, I won't waste time with them. He'll just kill them one by one. Jian Wushuang's eyes flashed with a sharp light. He instantly turned into a stream of light and shot out. The Blood Mountain sword had already appeared in his hand. A mere divine master dares to participate in a fierce battle at the level of the immortal saint. He's courting death. A trace of contempt flashed through the bald youth who ranked third. With a wave of his hand, a majestic divine power gathered in front of him and formed a huge fist that attacked Jian Wushuang. Oh, are you looking down on me? Jian Wushuang curled his lips slightly. He did not even bother to wave his sword as he looked at the incoming fist. With just a thought, an invisible sword shadow instantly condensed in front of him and then burst out. The sword shadow crushed the fist that had gathered divine power. It directly tore the fist into pieces. Jian Wushuang's figure was not hindered at all. He had already appeared in front of the bald young man. Third brother, be careful. Dodge. The cold elder and the black-haired skinny man were shocked because they had already seen a beautiful sword light. The sword light was so beautiful that it was intoxicating. It was incredibly fast. What? The bald young man widened his eyes and looked at the beautiful sword light coming toward him, but he could not react at all. Chi. The beautiful sword light brushed past the bald young man's neck, and the bald young man's entire head flew out. The first one. Jian Wushuang smiled and appeared next to the black-haired skinny man. Whoosh. It was also an extremely beautiful sword attack, but it directly created a huge sword net. The sword net was like a ferocious beast that opened its bloody mouth, wanting to swallow the black-haired skinny man completely. Second brother, run. The cold old man not far away shouted. The black-haired skinny man had already reacted. If the three of them worked together, their battle strength would indeed be tyrannical. Unless they met a true saint, they would not have any scruples. But if the three of them were to be disintegrated and killed one by one, they would only have the battle strength of an ordinary immortal saint. Now that the bald youth had been killed on the spot, the three-man alliance had been broken, leaving only the two of them to escape. Run. The black-haired skinny man instantly burst out his fastest speed, wanting to escape the sword net before it completely covered him. However, at this time, Jian Wushuang suddenly raised one of his palms and pointed in his direction. The power of the space-time rule immediately burst out. The space-time where the black-haired skinny man was immediately frozen. It was so heavy that it was almost negligible. However, in such a short time, the sword net had completely enveloped the black-haired skinny man and a large number of sword lights attacked him. The black-haired skinny man did not even have time to scream before his divine body was crushed into pieces. No. Seeing this scene, the cold elder's eyes became bloodshot and crazy. Was too fast. Jian Wushuang was too fast. At first, none of the three brothers thought much of Jian Wushuang as a divine master. However, Jian Wushuang killed the third brother, the bald youth, in an instant, and then the second brother with a thunderbolt, that was the black-haired skinny man. The cold-faced elder saw everything, but he could not help them in time. He could only watch as his two brothers were mercilessly killed by Jian Wushuang. Your two brothers are already dead. Now it's your turn. Jian Wushuang smiled coldly. Chapter 2952, Discovery. Haha, Third Saint Umbra, I'd like to see if you're dead or not. Shuedong King laughed coldly. The cold elder's body trembled as if he had gone mad. His scarlet eyes also looked at Jian Wushuang and Shuedong King. Jian Wushuang and Shuedong King were in the middle of him. The cold elder knew very well that in this situation, he had no chance of survival. Shuedong King and you? Good. I, the third Shadow Saint, have dominated the endless territories for so many years. Today I am finally defeated by you. However, although we three brothers are dead, you will not have a good time. The cold elder shouted. Humph! Jian Wushuang and Shuedong King had already stepped forward. With their combined efforts, the cold elder was killed in an instant. But before he was killed, a message was sent out from the cold elder's hand. In the void, Jian Wushuang and Shuedong King stood side by side. The three Shadow Saints are dead, Jian Wushuang said coldly. It's all thanks to you, Brother Heavenly Marquis. Otherwise it wouldn't be so easy to kill the three brothers. Shuedong King chuckled. It's a good thing that I asked you to complete this 3-star mission. Otherwise it wouldn't have been easy for me to kill the three Shadow Saints alone. Compared to those below the true Saint realm, this ordinary 3-star mission is indeed a little difficult. Jian Wushuang nodded. This mission was to kill the three Shadow Saints, but Jian Wushuang also saw the strength of the three Shadow Saints. It was too difficult for an ordinary peak false saint to complete this mission. Even for an existence like Shuedong King, who was infinitely close to a true saint, it was also a bit difficult to face such a mission. Brothers of the Heaven Marquis, since the three Shadow Saints are dead, let's distribute the resources and treasures in their interspatial rings, Shuedong King suggested. Okay. Jian Wushuang nodded. The two immediately began to distribute the treasures. The three Shadow Saints were real immortal saints and had collected a lot of resources. They had obtained a lot of resources, but unfortunately, they did not have any precious treasures in their interspatial rings. The task is completed. Brother Heavenly Marquis, let's go back, Shuedong King said. Don't worry. Jian Wushuang waved his hand to stop him. What's wrong? Shuedong King looked at him. Have you noticed that the place where the three Shadow Saints live, the palace below, is a bit special? Jian Wushuang said. The palace is special? Shuedong King was stunned and immediately covered it with his soul power. This palace is nothing special except for a layer of special restriction at the bottom, Shuedong King said. It's the special restriction, Jian Wushuang said in a deep voice. The restriction is at the bottom of the palace, which means it's underground. If I saw such an underground restriction, I would think that there is a secret chamber. The third Saint Shadow was in seclusion in the secret chamber, so he specially set up a restriction to prevent anyone from disturbing him. But now, the third Saint Shadow has come out and no one is in the secret room. Why is the restriction still open? If it's really just a restriction covering the secret room, they can use some of the restrictions at will. With their strength, even if they set up a restriction casually, no one should be able to break it in the secret shout domain. But look at the layer of restrictions below, it's very powerful. Most importantly, the restriction has the ability of confusion and concealment, so you and I can't see what's on the other end of the restriction. That's strange. Upon hearing Jian Wushuang's words, Shuedong King also revealed a strange expression. Brother Heavenly Marquis, are you saying that there is a secret hidden on the other side of the restriction? Shuedong King asked. I don't know, but since we have found something strange there is no harm in going to take a look. Let's go down. Jian Wushuang smiled and immediately headed down to the palace. The palace used to be where the third Shadow Saints clan lived. There were a lot of maids and servants in the palace, but now because of the death of the third Shadow Saints clan, the maids and servants were scared and fled in all directions. Of course, they were both surprised and delighted at the same time. The strength of the third Shadow Saints clan meant that they could finally get rid of the hands of the three demons. Jian Wushuang and Shuedong King had already appeared at the bottom of the palace, in front of the restriction. This restriction does look powerful. Shuedong King looked at the restriction in front of him and waved the long saber in his hand. An extremely domineering saber light directly broke the restriction in front of him. When the restriction was broken, many things hidden under the restriction were immediately exposed to Jian Wushuang and Shuedong King. When they swept their soul power, they were stunned. Whoosh, whoosh. Their figures appeared next to a pool as if they had teleported. It was called a pool, but there was no water in it. Instead, there were all kinds of black mud. In the center of the pool, which was the center of the survivors, there was an earthy yellow fruit tree. On the tree, there was an earthy yellow fruit the size of a baby's head. The earthy yellow fruit emitted a special fragrance. The fruit was surrounded by a hazy earthy yellow energy. Jian Wushuang and Shuedong King both recognized this energy. It was the power of the law of the earth. What a rich power of the law of the earth. What kind of treasure is this fruit? Jian Wushuang's eyes sparkled. Tut, tut, no wonder it was covered with restriction. There is such a fruit hidden here. Shuedong King also praised, I don't know what this fruit is, but judging from the power of earth rules covered on the surface of the fruit, it must be a treasure that is very useful for comprehending the earth rules. It's a treasure, and its value should be extraordinary. Jian Wushuang nodded secretly, but then his expression became strange. No, there's something wrong with this fruit. If I'm not wrong, it should not be fully ripe. Not fully ripe? Shuedong King was stunned, but then he understood. It was indeed not fully ripe. If it had been fully ripe, the third saint would not have let it stay here. It would have picked it long ago. I see. No wonder 3 shadow saints would close all the space passages leading to the outside world and completely cover the entire Dark Shout realm with restrictions. It turns out that he did not want to make the Dark Shout realm a better paradise for them, but for this fruit. They were worried that a powerful immortal saint would come to the Dark Shout realm and discover the fruit, so they simply sealed the realm completely. Jian Wushuang said in a deep voice. Chapter 2953, Star Sea Saint, so that's how it is? Shuedong King was quick-witted. After hearing Jian Wushuang's words, he understood everything. The 3 shadow saints are really well hidden. If we hadn't come here to carry out the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance's mission and killed the 3 of them, we wouldn't have known that such a treasure was hidden here, Shuedong King said. It's a pity that the 3 shadow saints waited for the fruit to appear for so many years, but in the end, it still benefited you and me for nothing, Jian Wushuang said with a smile. Yes. Shuedong King's eyes were also shining. The fragrance of the fruit is already very strong. It's only missing the last bit of transformation. If I'm not mistaken, the fruit should be completely ripe in a month or so. A month? Jian Wushuang was delighted. Both he and Shuedong King could tell that this fruit was not an ordinary object. Otherwise, the 3 Shadow Saint clan would not have spent so much effort to protect this place for so many years. Now that the 3 Shadow Saint clan were dead, those who knew about the existence of this fruit. Oh no. Jian Wushuang's expression suddenly changed. What's wrong? Shuedong King immediately looked over. I'm afraid it won't be that easy for us to completely occupy the fruit, Jian Wushuang said. What do you mean? Shuedong King was puzzled. Do you remember what the 3rd Shadow Saint said before he died? He said that although the 3 brothers are dead, neither of us will have a good life. Jian Wushuang's voice was cold. I thought the 3rd elder of the 3 Shadow Saints was just saying it casually, but now it seems that it's not that simple. Shuedong King frowned. The cold elder did say that when he died. If I'm not wrong, the 3rd elder of the Shadow 3 Saints knew that he was going to die, so he must have secretly spread the news of this fruit before we killed him. Even if he didn't, he must have told others, Jian Wushuang said. What? Shuedong King was shocked. The fruit was obviously very valuable and it was not ripe yet. They could not pick it and leave immediately. They had to wait here quietly for a month. If the cold elder really spread the news, then there would be other experts who would come to fight with them during the month. If that's the case, then it's troublesome, Shuedong King said with a frown. It's very troublesome. The key is that neither of us knows what this fruit is or its specific value. We don't know what level of experts it will attract, Jian Wushuang said. If only some false saints were attracted by the fruit, he would not care even if a peak false saint appeared. But if a true saint was also attracted, then it would be really troublesome. Brother Heavenly Marquis. Shuedong King's brows suddenly relaxed, and he also had a smile on his face. Right now, we're not sure if the boss of the 3 Shadow Saints has spread the news. Even if he did spread the news, if an ordinary expert came, the 2 of us would be able to easily resist him. In this territory, the only one who has the battle strength of a true saint is that Star Sea Saint. But he's only a first-level true saint. Even if he personally arrives, the 2 of us can barely resist him. Besides, even if we can't resist it, we can just leave the fruit. After all, our mission has been completed, and the fruit is just an unexpected surprise. Haha, you're right. Jian Wushuang nodded. Indeed, they had many choices. There was no need to worry or struggle now. Just wait. A month will pass very quickly. Maybe no one will come after a month? Shuedong King smiled. Immediately, Jian Wushuang and Shuedong King waited quietly in the underground of the palace. It was a vast and boundless void. In the void there were many beautiful and dazzling stars. A dense mass of stars formed together, forming a vast sea of stars. And in the center of this sea of stars, there was a majestic continent floating. In the center of the continent, there was a 10,000 zhang tall mountain palace. There was a bamboo forest. In the depths of the bamboo forest there was a bamboo house. Inside the bamboo house, there was a middle-aged man dressed in gray robes. The cold and arrogant middle-aged man who had his eyes on the stage was sitting cross-legged there. This cold and arrogant middle-aged man was the only true saint known in the surrounding territories, the Star Ocean Saint. The Star Ocean Saint was an expert who comprehended the laws of the earth. His comprehension of the laws of the earth was extremely high. In order to comprehend the laws of the earth, he did not even wear shoes all year round. He walked barefoot and brought his body closer to the earth. Whoosh! A figure shot out from the void at the fastest speed, landing in this bamboo forest. Then he walked to the front of the bamboo house and bowed respectfully. Greetings, Saint Lord. The Star Sea Saint also controlled a force, and he was respectfully called the Saint Lord in that force. Come in. The Star Sea Saint waved his hand and the bamboo door opened. The graceful woman who had already reached the level of the immortal saint quickly walked into the bamboo house. What's the matter? The Star Sea Saint asked. His voice was cold and emotionless. He was the only true saint in this territory, and his strength was publicly acknowledged to be the strongest. He was already high and mighty, and now he was only focused on reaching a higher level of cultivation. As for other things, he could not be bothered to pay attention to them. Moreover, for the current him, there were very few people in this territory who could make him pay attention to them. Saint Lord, I just received news from an immortal saint who has a good relationship with me. He said that not long ago, the boss of the 3 Shadow Saints had personally sent him a message saying that there was a special treasure in the Dark Shout territory that he occupied, the graceful woman said. Special treasure? What is it? The Star Sea Saint's expression did not change. Earth God Fruit. The graceful woman said directly. What did you say? The Star Sea Saint, who had a calm and indifferent expression, stood up directly, his hair and beard blowing. Is what you said true? Is there really an Earth God Fruit in the realm of Secret Shout? The Star Sea Saint looked at the graceful woman excitedly. That good friend of mine wouldn't lie to me. As for the 3 Shadow Saints, I've sent people to investigate it carefully. I've also received internal information from the Dark Rebuke territory. The 3 Shadow Saints had met a great enemy a few days ago and died. The news was sent by them before they died. In addition, they said that the great enemy God Fruit would take another month to ripen, said the graceful woman. Chapter 2954. The true sage has arrived, it will take another month to ripen? The Starry Sea Saint was immediately overjoyed. Haha, since the boss of the 3 Shadow Saints said it before he died, it's most likely not a lie. Moreover, since he said that the Earth God Fruit will take another month to ripen, then it can't be a lie. In other words, this news is 100% true. Yes. Yes, I made the same judgment. That's why I immediately came to report to you, Saint Lord, the graceful woman said. In addition, I have also investigated everything clearly. There were 2 people who killed the 3 Shadow Saints, and they were all from the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. One of them was Shuedong King, who had just broken through to the saint level not long ago. The reason why they acted was that they accepted a 3-star mission from the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, and that 3-star mission was to kill the 3 Shadow Saints. Then where are these 2 now? Are they still staying in the Dark Shout realm? The Star Sea Saint said. Yes, as expected, these 2 have also discovered the existence of the Earth God Fruit, so they have been waiting there. They want to wait for the Earth God Fruit to ripen and pluck it before leaving, said the graceful woman. Haha, these 2 have a good plan, but unfortunately, since I know about this matter, the Earth God Fruit is mine. No one can take it away. The Star Sea Saint's eyes shone with a strong light. You did a good job. They'll go to the Dark Shout realm first and reward you after I get the Earth God Fruit, Star Sea Saint said. Thank you, Saint Lord. The graceful woman was overjoyed. The Star Sea Saint did not stay for long and went straight to the Dark Shout realm as fast as he could. In the Temple of the Swamp in the Dark Shout realm, Jian Wushuang and Shuedong King were drinking and chatting casually. They were waiting for the earthy yellow fruit to ripen. And now the fruit was very close to ripen. But at this moment, buzz. An extremely powerful aura, which was obviously above that of an ordinary immortal saint, came pressing down. The aura was vast and majestic, covering the entire swamp. Jian Wushuang and Shuedong King, who were in the hall, were immediately alarmed by this aura. This aura, it's a true saint. Jian Wushuang's expression changed. Damn it, a true saint expert actually came, Shuedong King cursed. Without any hesitation, they immediately rose up and appeared in the void above. When they arrived in the void, they saw the cold and arrogant middle-aged man with bare feet. The cold and arrogant middle-aged man with bare feet sized up Jian Wushuang and Shuedong King with his profound eyes. He is indeed the Star Sea Saint. Shuedong King's body trembled as he whispered, "It is said that the Star Sea Saint is an expert who has comprehended the rules of the earth. He must have learned of the existence of the earth yellow fruit and rushed here." "I think so." Jian Wushuang nodded. "But he is the only one who has arrived. I wonder if there will be other experts of the true saint realm." "No, he is the only true saint in this territory. The other true saints are far away in other realms. It will take a while to get the news. It will take a longer time to get here from their territory. But the Star Sea Saint alone is not to be trifled with." Shuedong King sighed. True saints and false saints, although they were both immortal saints and there was only a one-word difference, the difference between them was abnormally huge. Although Shuedong King was a peak false saint, and was very close to a true saint, no matter how close he was, as long as he grasped the immortal body and did not truly possess true saint battle strength, he was already on two completely different levels. The Shuedong King was not afraid of any of the immortal saints around this realm when facing the three shadow saints. However, he was indeed a little afraid when facing the Star Sea Saint. Shuedong King greets the Star Sea Saint Lord. Shuedong King bowed slightly. "You are Shuedong King?" The Starry Sea Saint spoke. His voice was cold and emotionless. "I already know that you killed the three Shadow Saints, and I also know that the third Shadow Saint realm has been hiding the Earth God Fruit. This Earth God Fruit is very useful for comprehending the rules of the Earth and is also very useful to me. That's why I came here." Earth God Fruit. Jian Wushuang and Shuedong King were surprised. They did not know the Earth God Fruit before, but now they knew from the Star Sea Saint that it was called the Earth God Fruit. With the name of the Earth, one could imagine how helpful the Earth God Fruit was to the rules of the Earth. "Star Sea Saint Master, there is indeed an Earth God Fruit in the Dark Shout realm, which is at the bottom of the palace below," Shuedong King admitted directly. There was nothing he could do. As soon as Sea Star Saint arrived, he immediately released his soul power and saw everything around him. Naturally, he also saw the existence of the Earth God Fruit. It was useless for him to deny it. "But the Earth God Fruit was discovered by the two of us first after all?" Shuedong King said with a frown. "No, the Earth God Fruit was discovered by the three Shadow Saints first. And if nothing goes wrong, they should have been waiting in the Dark Shout realm for a long time. Unfortunately, the Earth God Fruit was about to mature, but the three of them died at the hands of the two of you. The two of you also took advantage of the Earth God Fruit, but fortunately, the Earth God Fruit is still some time away from maturity." Sea Star Saint smiled coldly. "How about this? Since all of you have been waiting for this Earth God Fruit for a few days, I promise to give each of you 1 million sacred elixirs. How about it?" 1 million sacred elixirs? Shuedong King's heart skipped a beat as he frowned slightly. 1 million sacred elixirs was indeed not a low price. One had to know that many immortal saints with average strength only had around 500,000 to 600,000 sacred elixirs. Only the wealthier ones were able to take out more than 1 million sacred elixirs. After all, Shuedong King had just broken through to the immortal saint realm and possessed the battle strength of a peak false saint. He did not have much time to accumulate wealth. Therefore, 1 million saint elixirs was not a small amount to him. Although 1 million saint elixirs was not a small amount, it was still insignificant compared to the true value of the Earth God Fruit. Although Jian Wushuang and Shuedong King did not know how much the Earth God Fruit was worth, according to their estimates, it was at least 30 million saint elixirs. It was too much to expect Star Sea Saint to take 2 million saint elixirs for such a precious thing. Star Sea Saint Lord, right? I don't lack 1 million saint elixirs. Compared to 1 million saint elixirs, I'm more likely to get the Earth God Fruit, so... Jian Wushuang did not finish his words. "Shut up." Star Sea Saint was stunned. "I'm talking to Shuedong King. Since when did you, a divine master, dare to interrupt me?" As soon as he finished his sentence, Star Sea Saint rolled up his sleeves. Immediately, endless rules of the earth gathered in front of him, forming a huge earthy yellow hand that directly fanned toward Jian Wushuang. Chapter 2955. Peak Stage 1 Jian Wushuang frowned slightly. The Blood Mountain sword in his hand moved the boundless sword tree, which was 33,000 feet tall, and instantly, a huge sword shadow slashed out. The sword shadow directly cut the giant earthy yellow palm into two halves. The power of the earth rules spread out in all directions. Oh! Star Sea Saint raised his eyebrows and looked at Jian Wushuang in surprise. A divine master was able to block my attack head-on. No wonder you two worked together and killed the 3 Shadow Saints. However, your strength is far from enough. I'll give you one last chance. It's still 1 million Saint Elixirs per person. Get lost immediately or else. A cold light appeared in the Star Sea Saint's eyes. Shuedong King's expression changed. He said in a low voice, Star Sea Saint Lord, are you forcing us? Humph, although you are the #1 expert in the surrounding territories and a true saint expert, I and the Heavenly Sword Marquis might be able to fight you. Really? A sneer suddenly appeared on the corner of Star Sea Saint's mouth. Stupid, you underestimate me too much. Well, since you two want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. As soon as he finished his words, Star Sea Saint moved. At the moment he moved, a terrifying divine power burst out from Star Sea Saint's body. This divine power was shocking enough to change the color of heaven and earth. This divine power, Jian Wushuang's pupils suddenly shrank. Damn it. Shuedong King's expression also changed greatly. They all felt that the divine power emitted by the Star Sea Saint was not only superior to that of a false saint but also extremely powerful among true saints. Level 2? No, he hasn't reached the level of a level 2 true saint yet, but he's at least at the peak of level 1. We're in big trouble, Shuedong King said in a low voice. Peak of level 1 true saint? Jian Wushuang's eyes narrowed. They were both level 1 true saints, but there were differences in strength. Judging from the divine power of the Star Sea Saint, he was much stronger than the level 1 true saint, Saint Hong, who had fought with him in the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. The strength. Shuedong King, be careful. Jian Wushuang shouted. However, the Star Sea Saint was too fast. As soon as he revealed himself, he had already appeared in front of Shuedong King like a ghost. Although Shuedong King was shocked, he immediately reacted and waved the cyan long saber in his hand. The cyan long saber turned into a huge cyan phantom and directly slashed out with boundless divine power. Shuedong King had already unleashed his strongest strength at this moment. Ridiculous. The Star Sea Saint sneered and slapped his palm forward. This slap was like a huge world pressing down. The huge cyan phantom instantly dissipated, and even the cyan-colored long saber in Shuedong King's hand was sent flying. Puff. Shuedong King spat out a mouthful of blood and shot backward in a sorry state. With just one strike and one palm, Shuedong King, who was at peak false saint realm and was infinitely close to the true saint realm, was seriously injured. You have to die too. The Star Sea Saint's eyes were filled with monstrous malice. After severely injuring Shuedong King with one palm, he moved again and appeared in front of Jian Wushuang. Whoosh! The same palm struck out from above and ferociously slammed down on Jian Wushuang. Rumble. The endless power of the earth's rules immediately formed a towering mountain in the void and pressed down on Jian Wushuang. Seeing this, Jian Wushuang's face darkened. The power of the attack is so strong just by relying on divine power and the power of the earth's rules. Although he was shocked, Jian Wushuang still waved his hand. A shocking sword shadow wanted to tear the sky and earth apart, but it could not completely split the mountain. Then the towering mountain continued to crush Jian Wushuang. Whoosh! Jian Wushuang was also forced back, but his divine body was not damaged. Brother Heavenly Sword Marquis. Shuedong King, who had already retreated far away, immediately looked at Jian Wushuang. I'm fine. Don't worry about me. Stay away from me. Leave this guy to me, Jian Wushuang said coldly. Leave him to you? Shuedong King could not help but be startled. The Star Sea Saint did not make a move, but the moment he did, he was immediately frightened. The battle strength of a true saint at the peak of rank 1 was too terrifying for him to contend with. In his opinion, even if he and Jian Wushuang joined hands, the possibility of fighting against the Star Sea Saint was slim. But now, Jian Wushuang wanted him to fight against the Star Sea Saint alone? Was that possible? A true saint at the peak of the first rank is a good opponent. Jian Wushuang looked at the Star Sea Saint with excitement in his eyes. He really wanted to fight with a real expert. Only by fighting with experts could his strength increase and become stronger. However, most of the cultivators he met were too weak. For example, in the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance's assessment, his strongest opponent was only a peak false saint. He could not force out his true strength. Now that a powerful true saint at the peak of rank 1 was born in front of him, He naturally did not want to miss it. I want to see how strong you are as the #1 expert in this territory, Jian Wushuang said coldly. The surging divine power on his body slowly rose. Battle intent? Star Sea Saint looked at Jian Wushuang with a strange expression. He admitted that Jian Wushuang was not weak. During the fight, Shuedong King was seriously injured by his attack, but Jian Wushuang was not injured at all. But that did not mean that a divine master could fight him head-on? I'm also looking forward to what tricks you can play, Star Sea Saint sneered, not taking Jian Wushuang seriously at all. The majestic golden divine power on Jian Wushuang's body began to condense, and in the blink of an eye, a 30,000-meter tall golden emperor phantom appeared behind him. The golden emperor's eyes were cold as he looked down at everything in the world. At the same time, his aura also soared, and a layer of dark golden armor appeared on his body. 7-star secret skill, divine punishment, 9 luminary star armor. The 3 secret skills had been used at the same time. Jian Wushuang's strength reached its peak in an instant. Splash! A huge blood-red river gushed out. Chapter 2956. A head-on battle. The blood-red river surged in the sky. A faint dark gold light surrounded the surface of the river and instantly filled the entire world. The 9-universe Bloodlight River, Star Armor Domain, and Punishment Prison had all been activated. Under Jian Wushuang's full effort, the 3 domains pressed crazily on the Star Sea Saint. A domain-type holy treasure? Star Sea Saint's eyes shone with a dark light. A divine master has such a treasure. Not bad. What else do you have? Bring it out. Star Sea Saint looked at Jian Wushuang calmly. Jian Wushuang was too lazy to answer. After his battle strength had reached its peak, he directly attacked. Whoosh! His figure burst forth as if he had teleported. Jian Wushuang appeared in front of the Star Sea Saint. He held his sword with one hand and slowly raised it. Then he made a slash. This slash seemed to be an understatement, but in fact, the moment it was made, Jian Wushuang's sword essence and the power of the boundless sword tree in his body had been exerted to the maximum. Buzz buzz buzz. A large number of space-time rules condensed with the sword essence. Time-space blades condensed. There were more than 400 densely packed time-space blades, and these time-space blades had completely merged with the sword essence. The space-time rules and swordsmanship were perfectly combined. Boom. A fierce wind suddenly swept up between heaven and earth, and a huge sword-edge storm completely covered the void where the Star Sea Saint was. The power of this sword doesn't seem weak. The Star Sea Saint looked calmly at the sword blade storm, but a faint smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. He flipped his palm, and an ancient giant hammer appeared in his hand. This giant hammer probably weighed hundreds of millions of pounds, and its surface was surrounded by faint earthy yellow energy. As the Star Sea Saint raised his right hand, the giant hammer was also raised high. Endless power of the laws of the earth began to gather in the Star Sea Saint's hand. Heaven and earth split. The Star Sea Saint shouted in a low voice, and the giant hammer in his hand instantly fell down. It was a giant hammer that weighed hundreds of millions of kilograms, but when the giant hammer fell down at this moment, it was like a sharp battle knife. With incredible power, it instantly split the storm of sword blades, then the overwhelming power crushed the sword essence in the sword storm. After the huge hammer fell, a visible crack appeared in the world. This crack was very obvious. Whoosh! Jian Wushuang rolled and shot backward. He retreated a long distance and finally stopped. After stopping, he looked up at Star Sea Saint again with a hint of surprise in his eyes. So powerful. This power is too powerful. Jian Wushuang praised in his heart. Boy, is this all you can do? Star Sea Saint looked at Jian Wushuang coldly with a giant hammer in one hand. Humph. Jian Wushuang snorted and communicated with the Blood Mountain sword with his mind. Buzz. A shocking sword essence suddenly burst out. This sword essence was not very powerful, but it was extremely extraordinary. It was a supreme sword essence that carried a shocking will. The sword essence swept across the world and all the people in the world were ants. Jian Wushuang held the Blood Mountain sword tightly and felt the supreme sword essence that burst out of the Blood Mountain sword. Millions of people in the world had to submit to this supreme sword essence. At this moment he was the king of millions of sword principles. This sword essence is so strong. The Star Sea Saint's pupils constricted, and his expression gradually became serious. The supreme sword essence had been guided, and Jian Wushuang's battle strength instantly soared. Again? Without any unnecessary words, Jian Wushuang stepped forward again. He directly appeared in front of the Star Sea Saint, and the Blood Mountain sword in his hand had already been silently slashed out. This sword did not display any overly shocking sword techniques, but under the sweep of that supreme sword intent, the void was easily torn apart by the sword light, and the air was torn apart. A majestic sword light brought with it a supreme aura. It suddenly swept toward the Star Sea Saint. Facing this sword, even the Star Sea Saint did not dare to be the slightest bit careless. At this moment he held the giant hammer in both hands. The earthen yellow energy gathered in the sky, and the giant hammer in his hands suddenly expanded in size. It struck out like a small mountain. Boom! The giant hammer swept across the void, and the void seemed to be unable to withstand his power. It trembled crazily and let out a low rumble. In the blink of an eye, the giant hammer and the Blood Mountain sword collided again. Ha! Jian Wushuang's eyes focused. He still felt a great pressure from the giant hammer. Even though he had channeled the supreme sword essence and his battle strength had soared, the power contained in the giant hammer seemed to be stronger than his. Whoosh! Jian Wushuang staggered backward. Boy, no matter how strong your skills are, in front of me, in front of absolute strength, it's futile. Star Sea Saint's voice was cold. He waved the giant hammer and intended to chase after Jian Wushuang. However, Jian Wushuang pointed at him while he was retreating. Buzz. The power of endless spacetime rules swept out. Heaven-designated skill. With Jian Wushuang's current comprehension of spacetime rules and the power of divine power, this move could be of great use to those below the true saint realm. However, against a genuine true saint who was at the peak of rank 1, the effect of this move was negligible. However, no matter how weak the effect was, it still made Star Sea Saint pause slightly. At the same time, streams of black light rushed out and formed a 2-meter-long pitch-black divine sword in the blink of an eye. The pitch-black divine sword contained the power of endless reincarnation rules. As soon as it formed a line, the world around it immediately turned white. It was a vast expanse of whiteness, completely reduced to a world of ice and snow. Kill? Jian Wushuang let out a low cry. The pitch-black divine sword suddenly attacked, aiming straight at the head of Star Sea Saint. However, before the black divine sword actually appeared in front of Star Sea Saint's head, he had already broken free from the heaven-designated skill. Humph! With a cold snort, the Star Sea Saint swung the giant hammer in his hand. When the hammer hit the black divine sword, it was immediately sent flying. Even the black divine sword was trembling crazily as if it was about to collapse. Although the power of the reincarnation sword formation is powerful, it is still performed by the sword formation itself. Without the supreme sword essence of the Blood Mountain sword, its power cannot affect the Star Sea Saint, who has reached the peak of the first level of the true saint realm. However, it doesn't need to cause too much of an impact. As long as the reincarnation sword formation is perfectly coordinated with my own swordsmanship, the Star Sea Saint won't be able to do anything to me. Jian Wushuang's eyes turned cold. As soon as he stood still, he burst out again like a bolt of lightning. Chapter 2957. Earth, boom, clang, clang, bang, bang. The sounds of head-on collisions and clashes rang out continuously. In the center of the battlefield, Jian Wushuang had already engaged in a head-on battle with the Star Sea Saint. In terms of offensive power, the Star Sea Saint was indeed slightly stronger than Jian Wushuang. Moreover, his comprehension of the rules of the earth was also extremely high, making him extremely strong in defense, attack, and defense. His speed was also not bad and he had almost no weaknesses. Although Jian Wushuang had perfectly combined his swordsmanship with the reincarnation sword formation to unleash the ultimate power, he still had the upper hand in a fight with Star Sea Saint. However, Star Sea Saint obviously could not do anything to Jian Wushuang in a short time. Not far from the battlefield, Shuedong King was already stunned. Star Sea Saint Lord is the acknowledged #1 expert in this territory, Star Sea Saint Lord. His divine power is extremely powerful, his comprehension of the rules of the earth is extremely high, and his absolute arts are even more powerful, too powerful. Star Sea Saint Master is really too powerful. However, Star Sea Saint Master is so powerful, but how could the Heavenly Sword Marquis fight him head-on? Shuedong King was shocked. Although he knew that Jian Wushuang was not weak, he thought that Jian Wushuang's battle strength was equal to his, or even less than his. But the result? Jian Wushuang's battle strength had completely overturned his understanding. To be able to defeat Star Sea Saint Master, who is at the peak of the first-rank True Saint realm, the Heavenly Sword Marquis must have the battle strength of the first-rank True Saint realm. Even among the first-rank True Saints, they must be extremely powerful. But he is only a Divine Master? Shuedong King could not help muttering. Yes, a Divine Master. Because Jian Wushuang was only a Divine Master, He was so shocked when Jian Wushuang displayed such battle strength. After all, he had never heard of a divine master who could have the battle strength of a true saint. In the center of the battlefield, the Star Sea Saint was full of surprise and shock at Jian Wushuang's strength. But soon, his eyes were filled with anger. Be careful. I admit that you are indeed a great genius. At least I have never heard of a divine master who is more powerful than you. But no matter how powerful you are, you will die if you dare to block my way. The cold voice of the Star Sea Saint reverberated across the entire world. At this moment, the Star Sea Saint had already raised the giant hammer in his hand once again. Buzz buzz buzz. Endless earthen yellow energy, which was also the power of the laws of the earth, surged out crazily and condensed toward the giant hammer in his hand at an incomparably terrifying speed. A layer of earthen yellow earth battle armor appeared on the surface of the Star Sea Saint's body. His figure also became more towering and his aura became more tyrannical. As for the giant hammer in his hand, it began to enlarge infinitely. Earth collapse. The Star Sea Saint's eyes flashed. Swish. It was like a flash of light. The giant hammer was raised high by the Star Sea Saint and was still a long distance away from Jian Wushuang. However, in an instant the giant hammer appeared in front of Jian Wushuang, giving him no time to resist. The giant hammer had already smashed into his divine body. How can it be so fast? Jian Wushuang's eyes were also filled with shock. He could see that the Star Sea Saint was preparing to use his ultimate move. However, he did not expect that the Star Sea Saint's move would be so fast that he did not have time to dodge. The giant hammer smashed fiercely. The terrifying power contained in it shattered the 9 luminary star armor on the surface of his body at the first moment. Then, the power passed through the golden armor and entered his body, wantonly moving around inside his body. Jian Wushuang's body was also smashed by the hammer and fell to the ground. A huge pit appeared on the ground. At the bottom of the pit, the power of the giant hammer had been completely exhausted. However, Jian Wushuang let out a sigh of relief. Fortunately, although my divine body has been damaged by more than 70%, it didn't directly collapse. I don't need to replenish my divine body, Jian Wushuang muttered. The collapse of his divine body was not terrible. He could use his divine power to rebuild his divine body immediately. However, he was only a divine master, but he could use his divine power to rebuild his divine body. It was obvious that he had an immortal body. There were not many divine masters who had an immortal body in the divine beginning world. This was the endless territory. Once the news spread out, the 3 Saint Realm experts who were still in the Golden Crow 9 realms and had not left would immediately determine his identity. This was not good for Jian Wushuang. His divine power had only been damaged, so he did not need to replenish it. He just needed to use his divine power to repair it. In the blink of an eye, Jian Wushuang's divine body had been completely repaired. Whoosh! He immediately rushed up again and appeared in the void above. Seeing Jian Wushuang rise up from the huge pit below unharmed, even the Star Sea Saint was a little surprised. How is this possible? He was not injured by my most powerful move? His aura was not weakened at all? The Star Sea Saint was full of disbelief. Shuedong King, who was watching the battle from outside the battlefield, was also stunned. If it had been him he would have died, but Jian Wushuang was not injured at all? You are indeed the #1 expert in this territory, the Star Sea Saint. You are indeed very strong, but unfortunately, although you are a little stronger than me, you can't do anything to me. It is difficult for you to even suppress me, let alone kill me. How can you compete with me for the divine earth fruit under such circumstances? Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. When the divine earth fruit ripens, he'll only have to tie you down and let Shuedong King pick it. You can only watch. Saint Star Sea's expression changed. Indeed, judging from the strength displayed by both sides, he could not do anything to Jian Wushuang. He had even used his strongest move, but he could not hurt Jian Wushuang. How could he kill him? What Jian Wushuang said was true. As long as he was entangled, Shuedong King would be able to pick the divine earth fruit with ease. Boy, what's your name? Star Sea Saint looked at Jian Wushuang. Heavenly Sword Marquis, Jian Wushuang said. Heavenly Sword Marquis, although you are only a divine master, your strength is indeed impressive. You are the first person below the true Saint realm to take my strongest move head-on, and you are only a divine master. However, if you think that you can easily get the divine earth fruit by entangling me, you are dreaming. Star Sea Saint smiled coldly. Chapter 2958, Forced to Retreat. Heavenly Sword Marquis, don't forget that it will take some time for the divine earth fruit to fully mature. During this time I can find a few of my immortal saints. I want to see if Shuedong King alone can compete with my immortal saints. The cold voice of the Star Sea Saint entered Jian Wushuang's ears, causing his face to darken. Outside the battlefield, Shuedong King also frowned. Indeed, not only was the Star Sea Saint the acknowledged #1 expert in the surrounding territory, but he also controlled a huge force. There were several immortal saints in that force alone, and it seemed that there were also peak false saints among them. If Star Sea Saint had gathered all the immortal saints before the divine earth fruit was fully ripe, the combined forces of the immortal saints would have been enough to suppress Shuedong King, and any one of them would have been enough to pick the divine earth fruit. It was enough to pick the divine earth fruit. Star Sea Saint Master, are you really going to fight us to the death? Jian Wushuang's voice was cold. Fight to the death? Ah, Heavenly Sword Marquis, you are talented, but your strength is not as good as mine. How dare you say that you want to fight to the death with me? What right do you have to fight with me? Star Sea Saint sneered loudly. It seems that you are going to force me. In that case, don't blame me. Today you don't have to go anywhere. Just stay here completely. Jian Wushuang's voice was cold and his killing intent was shocking. Hearing this, the Star Sea Saint's face changed. He looked at Jian Wushuang and found that the latter did not seem to be joking at all. Does this kid really have a trump card that can make me stay here? The Star Sea Saint muttered to himself, but he quickly dismissed the idea. Humph, he is only a divine master after all. He has already shown so many tricks. There is no way he can be more powerful. He's just bluffing. He wants to scare me and force me to leave. Star Sea Saint was almost certain. However, Jian Wushuang did not waste any more words. With a thought, a golden light instantly merged into the surrounding void. In an instant the world changed color. Above the endless sky, a wonderful scroll world appeared out of thin air. The world of the painting scroll was extremely real. There were mountains, rivers, and even 9 huge continents in the world. What is this? The Star Sea Saint frowned, but he suddenly widened his eyes. He saw a supreme power slowly condensing in the beautiful world of the painting scroll above him. This power was astonishingly strong, but in the end, it condensed into a hand seal. The hand seal was enormous and boundless as if it covered a great world. After the boundless hand seal was formed, it slowly broke out of the scroll world and slowly descended. The mountain river map was the first move of the 3 strongest moves of the 9-region seal, the Divine Emperor seal. This move had always been one of Jian Wushuang's killing moves. However, this move not only consumed a lot of divine power and mind power but also needed a period of time to develop. In an ordinary battle, there was rarely a chance to use a killing move of this level. However, it was obvious that neither he nor the Star Sea Saint could defeat the other. Under such circumstances, the two of them naturally had to compete with each other in their own killer moves. The move of the Divine Emperor Seal, which Jian Wushuang used with his current divine power, was extremely powerful. Rumble, the giant handprint slowly descended, and the heaven and earth void collapsed under the pressure of the handprint. The Star Sea Saint was at the bottom of the giant handprint. He was a true saint at the peak of rank 1. At this moment, there was a trace of fear and panic in his eyes. Previously, he did not care about Jian Wushuang's trump cards or skills because they could not threaten him. But now the appearance of the giant handprint scared him. Block it. The Star Sea Saint let out a low shout, and a trace of madness surged in his eyes. The endless power of the laws of the earth crazily condensed in front of him to form layers of barriers, and his huge hammer that weighed hundreds of millions of pounds was held in both hands at the same time. With an ear-piercing sound, the huge hammer that contained a terrifying power suddenly struck toward the huge hand seal. The two finally collided head-on. Bang! With a low rumble, the divine power of the rules of the earth spread out. The giant handprint stayed in the air for a moment, then continued to crush down. Boom! The huge swamp on the ground completely caved in. The entire swamp disappeared, but because Jian Wushuang could control his own power, the giant handprint did not touch the temple in the middle of the swamp, so it would not hurt the divine earth fruit. The world soon calmed down. Whoosh! A figure suddenly flew up. This figure was the Star Sea Saint, but at this moment he no longer looked high and mighty. Instead, he was in a sorry state. His robe was torn, his hair was messy, and there was blood at the corner of his mouth. His aura was also much weaker than before. He stood in the void and stared at Jian Wushuang with his cold eyes. Boy, I underestimated you. I didn't expect you to have such a killer move in your hands. Unfortunately, your move couldn't even defeat my divine body directly. You don't even qualify me to use my immortal body to rebuild my divine body. How can you leave me here? Saint Star Sea sneered. Indeed, Jian Wushuang's killer move was very powerful and terrifying. But do not forget, he was a true saint, and he had mastered the immortal body. With the immortal body, even a second-rank true saint who was stronger than him would find it extremely difficult to kill him. However, Jian Wushuang's killer move could not even break his divine body. How could he kill him? It's too early for you to be happy. Jian Wushuang shot a cold glance at Star Sea Saint, and the divine power in his body surged again. Boom. A stronger power began to gather in the sky. There's more? Star Sea Saint was shocked. He stared at the scroll world and felt the shocking power coming from it. No, this power is even more powerful and terrifying than the hand seal just now. The hand seal just now has already shattered my divine body a lot, and I almost collapsed directly. Now, the power he has condensed is even stronger than the hand seal just now, and it can definitely make my divine body collapse directly. Although I can rely on my immortal body to be sufficient, with my ability, I can only use it 4 times at most. But who knows how many times this kid can use such a killer move? The Star Sea Saint thought quickly and came up with an idea. The divine earth fruit is gone. I can think of ways to fight for it in the future, but I only have 1 life. Let's go. The Star Sea Saint made a prompt decision. He directly turned around and rushed toward the distant void at the fastest speed. Chapter 2959. Maturity, did he escape? Seeing the Star Sea Saint completely disappear from his sight, a strange smile appeared on Jian Wushuang's face. Buzz. The heaven and earth shook, and the pressure gathered at the top at a terrifying speed instantly disappeared. Brother Heavenly Sword Marquis, what are you? Shuedong King looked at Jian Wushuang in surprise. I'm just bluffing. Jian Wushuang smiled. Bluffing? Shuedong King was stunned, but he immediately understood. Indeed, Jian Wushuang was bluffing. He was very powerful and had many trump cards. However, unless he used the life level pressure, he had no means to completely kill a true saint at the peak of rank 1. As for the more powerful power that rose from the scroll world in the sky, it was indeed the second seal of the strongest 3 seals of the 9-region seal. However, he could not completely use this seal. He was just putting on an act and using some starting moves to condense such powerful power. However, because of the power of the first move and the many heaven-defying moves that Jian Wushuang had shown, Star Sea Saint believed that he could really use the second seal. Therefore the Star Sea Saint fled. He fled in fear. Star Sea Saint is indeed powerful. I can only fight him head-on with all my trump cards. It's impossible for me to kill him. It's already good enough that I can scare him and scare him away. If nothing goes wrong, he won't dare to come for the divine earth fruit again out of fear of me, Jian Wushuang said. It would not take long for the divine earth fruit to ripen. Before it ripens, Star Sea Saint would not be able to ask other powerful true saints to help him. He was completely stunned by Jian Wushuang and was afraid that he would not dare to come again. Therefore, the divine earth fruit had naturally become his and Shuedong King's possession. Let's wait here. In a few days, the divine earth fruit will be fully ripe, Jian Wushuang said. Okay. Shuedong King nodded heavily, but he gave Jian Wushuang a strange look. Brother Heavenly Sword Marquis, your strength is really terrifying. Shuedong King was extremely shocked. He had witnessed the battle between Jian Wushuang and the Star Sea Saint from the beginning to the end. He had thought that Jian Wushuang's battle strength should be comparable to his. They had fought equally before, but who would have thought that Jian Wushuang would be so heaven-defying? A divine master had scared the Star Sea Saint, who had reached the peak of rank 1 true saint, into fleeing in panic. It was incredible. Let's go down. Jian Wushuang did not explain much and returned to the palace with Shuedong King. In the bamboo forest on the floating continent in the center of the Star Sea. Since the Saint Master has gone to the Dark Shout realm, it should be easy for him to get the divine earth fruit. He will be overjoyed and will reward you handsomely. But what will he reward you with? The graceful woman who had come to inform the Star Sea Saint was waiting there, but her heart was filled with anticipation. The Star Sea Saint was publicly acknowledged as the #1 expert in this territory, and he had the most resources in his hands. The things he bestowed, even the immortal saint would be extremely moved. Right at this moment, shoo! A stream of light shot over from the distance, and in the blink of an eye, it had appeared in front of the graceful woman. Saint Master. The graceful woman immediately bowed, but when she saw the appearance of the Star Sea Saint, the smile on her face could not help but stiffen. At this moment, the Star Sea Saint was not only in a sorry state, but his face was also extremely gloomy. The aura on his body was also extremely gloomy and cold. He did not look like he had any good news at all. Saint Master, that divine earth fruit, the graceful woman had just opened her mouth. Get lost. Don't bring me the divine earth fruit again. The Star Sea Saint shouted angrily. Yes, yes. The graceful woman nodded in fear and immediately turned around to leave. The moment she turned around, a trace of coldness flashed in the graceful woman's eyes, but more than that, she was shocked. She knew that since the Star Sea Saint was so angry, it was obvious that he did not get the divine earth fruit. But as far as she knew, the people who occupied the Earth God Kingdom were only Shuedong King and a supreme divine master. How could the Star Sea Saint not get the divine earth fruit from them? Since the Saint Master didn't get the divine earth fruit, I didn't get the reward. This trip was in vain and I got myself into trouble. The graceful woman's face was cold and she soon left the bamboo forest. The Star Sea Saint returned to the bamboo house. When he sat down cross-legged on the bamboo bed, his face looked better. Heavenly Sword Marquis. You're unknown. Before this battle, I didn't know that you existed, and I didn't know that you had incredible talent. You're just a divine master, but you can't do anything to me. You even made me feel like my life was in danger when you used your last killing move. You're very powerful. It's not unfair that I lost to you in this battle. Moreover, I believe that with your power, you will grow to a higher level before long. You might even become famous in the absolute beginning divine realm. Although the divine earth fruit fell into your hands, I still admire you. The Star Sea Saint's eyes sparkled. He slowly closed his eyes, and the anger in his body gradually subsided. He was an ascetic, and his strength had come from his hard work and cultivation over the years. A treasure like the divine earth fruit was indeed very useful to him, and he was eager to get it. But if he could not get it, he would not force it. At most, it would be a pity. Time slowly passed. Soon a month had passed. In the palace, Jian Wushuang and Shuedong King were still eating and drinking. Suddenly, buzz! A strange aura directly erupted from the deepest part of the underground. At the same time, a large amount of hazy earthen yellow power formed a halo and swept out in all directions. It was not a big movement, but it was quite strange. Has it finally matured? Jian Wushuang and Shuedong King immediately stood up with surprise in their eyes. They soon came to the depths of the underground, came to the muddy pool, and saw the divine earth fruit again. The divine earth fruit had clearly completed its final transformation. The earthy yellow halo around its body was very thick, and the fragrance it emitted was even more tempting. Chapter 2960. Lord Tianshuo, it looks like it has matured. Brother, go and pick it, Shuedong King said. Okay. Jian Wushuang nodded. He jumped into the pool and picked the divine earth fruit. Then he returned to Shuedong King. Shuedong King, we both found the divine earth fruit at the same time, so we each have half of it. But now, although we know the name of the divine earth fruit from the Star Sea Saint, we don't know its function and value, Jian Wushuang said with a frown. Ah, that's easy. Brother Heavenly Marquis, listen to me. Let's go back to the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance first. When we get there, it will be easy to distribute, Shuedong King said with a smile. Okay. Jian Wushuang nodded. Jian Wushuang and Shuedong King returned to the 385th nest of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. Elder Chiu. Shuedong King walked to the counter and stood in front of the thin elder in a Taoist robe. Let's hand in the mission. Shuedong King took out a mission list and a mirror image token. This mirror image token was deliberately recorded by the Shuedong King. During the process of completing the mission, some experts of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance would take the corpse of the other party or prove the other party's identity so that they could kill the person themselves, but there were also some who found it troublesome. It was even easier to prove this by directly opening the mirror record and recording the whole process with the mirror image. The Shuedong King recorded the process with the mirror token. The elder took the mirror token and skimmed through it. The next moment he looked at Jian Wushuang with astonishment. That's right. Elder Chiu nodded at Jian Wushuang and took out an interspatial ring. This is your mission reward. You can distribute it yourselves. After taking it, Shuedong King left the counter. Shuedong King, if you and I carry out missions together in the future, it's better not to record it with the mirror token. Jian Wushuang touched his nose and said. He did not want too many people to know his strength. Haha, I understand. Shuedong King immediately nodded. Didn't you say that you know how to distribute the divine earth fruit when you arrived at the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance's nest? Jian Wushuang asked, puzzled. Don't worry, come with me. Shuedong King smiled mysteriously and then led Jian Wushuang to a corner of the nest. Brother Heavenly Marquis, you just joined the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance and became an ordinary member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance not long ago. I'm afraid you don't know your rights as an ordinary member, right? Shuedong King said as they walked. No, I don't, Jian Wushuang answered. Let me tell you. The members of the Heaven-Slaying Alliance have their own rights. whether they are ordinary members, Earth-level members, Heaven-level members, or even Emperor-level members. There are two kinds of rights. The first is the level of missions that can be accepted. Shuedong King explained. For example, ordinary members can only accept ordinary missions, but they are not qualified to accept higher-level Earth-level missions. On the contrary, Earth-level members can not only accept Earth-level missions but also accept ordinary missions. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. He knew this. And the second authority is the Treasure Pavilion, Shuedong King said. Treasure Pavilion? Jian Wushuang's expression changed. There is a Treasure Pavilion in the Heaven-Cleaving Union, and it is very unique. All members of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance can enter the Treasure Pavilion. However, the treasures in the Treasure Pavilion are divided into different levels. Ordinary members can only exchange for treasures with the authority of ordinary members. As for higher-level treasures, no matter how much you pay, you can't get them, Shuedong King said. Is that so? Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows and said, The Treasure Pavilion? We're here. Shuedong King stopped. Jian Wushuang was stunned, but he looked around blankly. He had come to a vast pavilion, but the key point was that it was a vast open space with no material objects around it. Was this the Treasure Pavilion of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance? Brother Heavenly Marquis, look. Shuedong King pointed forward. Jian Wushuang immediately followed Shuedong King's direction and was stunned. In the void in front of him, some faint golden light began to condense. A moment later, it condensed into a golden light shadow. This golden light shadow was the size of a normal human, but its exact appearance could not be seen. Welcome to the Treasure Pavilion. I am the Treasure Spirit of the Treasure Pavilion. You can call me Lord Tianshuo, the golden light shadow said in a normal human voice. Treasure Spirit? Jian Wushuang frowned. Brother, you should be familiar with the Treasure Spirit. However, this Lord Tianshuo in front of us is extraordinary, Shuedong King said softly. How is he extraordinary? Jian Wushuang asked. It's simple. I've heard that the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance only has one Treasure Pavilion and one weapon spirit in the Divine Beginning world, Shuedong King said in a deep voice. What? Jian Wushuang was shocked. The Heaven-Cleaving Alliance only had one Treasure Pavilion and one weapon spirit? Could it be that they were seeing the only weapon spirit? How could this be possible? The Treasure Pavilion of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance can't be in our current territory, Jian Wushuang said directly. Of course not. Shuedong King smiled. Let me tell you this. The Heaven-Cleaving Alliance indeed only has one Treasure Pavilion and one weapon spirit. However, this weapon spirit can have tens of thousands of clones and can be found in countless secret caves of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance in the Divine Beginning world. As long as it's in one of the secret caves of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, we members of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance can have a face-to-face conversation with it. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang was shocked. An artifact spirit had tens of thousands of incarnations and could be found in all the nests in the beginning divine world? Since we can talk to the artifact spirit directly, does that mean we can talk to it directly about what we want? Jian Wushuang asked. Yes. Shuedong King nodded. In front of Sir Tianshuo, you can tell him what you want or what kind of things you want. Sir Tianshuo will choose for you and show you the information of the treasures that meet your requirements and are within your jurisdiction. If you find the right one, you will pay the price. Then you can wait here. The experts of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance will naturally send the items to you. In addition, the Treasure Pavilion of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance can be used to exchange for treasures. Not only can you use sacred elixirs to buy some things, but you can also exchange your treasures for holy treasures. No matter what treasure it is, Lord Tianshuo can immediately recognize its origin and determine its value. Chapter 2961, A Huge Sum of Money, Take a Look. With that, Shuedong King walked forward. Lord Tianshuo, we have obtained a treasure. We would like you to determine its value, Shuedong King said. Sure. The golden light shadow nodded. Brother Heavenly Maskies, take out the Divine Earth Fruit, Shuedong King said. Jian Wushuang took out the Divine Earth Fruit without hesitation. The golden light shadow glanced at the Divine Earth Fruit and already had the result. The Divine Earth Fruit is very useful for cultivators who are comprehending the earth rules, especially those below the Master of Laws. It is enough to make many immortal saints who are comprehending the laws fight for it. Even some top immortal saints would covet it. This treasure is very valuable and very rare. You can choose to keep it or exchange it for me. But if you choose to keep it, you have to pay a fee of 500,000 sacred elixirs. The golden light shadow said. Appraisal fee? 500,000 sacred elixirs? Jian Wushuang was stunned. Brother Heavenly Marquis, You need to pay an appraisal fee to ask Lord Tianshuo to appraise a treasure in the treasure pavilion. The higher the value of the treasure, the higher the appraisal fee. However, if you choose to exchange this treasure for Lord Tianshuo will help you appraise it for free, said Shuedong King. Is that so? Jian Wushuang understood. Sir Tianshuo, the divine earth fruit is of no use to us, so I'll exchange it for you directly. But how many saint elixirs can I exchange for this treasure? Shuedong King asked. Sir Tianshuo pondered for a moment and then said, 100 million. 100 million. Hearing this number, Jian Wushuang and Shuedong King were stunned. They looked at each other with a trace of shock in their eyes. 100 million? 100 million sacred elixirs? They had guessed that the divine earth fruit was very valuable, otherwise the Star Sea Saint would not have come to fight for it. However, they estimated that the divine earth fruit was only worth about 20 to 30 million sacred elixirs. It was already very good that it was worth more than 30 million sacred elixirs. However, it was obvious that they had underestimated the value of the divine earth fruit. This earth god kingdom was an excellent treasure used to comprehend the laws of the earth. Many true saint experts who were proficient in the laws of the earth and had great strength coveted this treasure. How could its value be ordinary? 100 million sacred pills. This is because we are only ordinary members, right? Shuedong Wang said. Yes. Lord Tianshuo directly nodded. According to the rules of the treasure pavilion of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, the higher the level of the members, the more authority they have. Whether you buy it in the treasure pavilion, there are certain benefits. For example, if you buy the same treasure, ordinary members must pay 100% of the sacred elixirs, but earth-level members only need to pay 90%, and heaven-level members only need to pay 80%, and so on. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. Now he finally knew the benefits of being a high-level member. It's true that you can only get 100 million sacred elixirs if you exchange the divine earth fruit for me with your authority as an ordinary member. But if you become an earth-level member in the future and exchange the divine earth fruit for me, you can get 10 million more sacred elixirs. As for your choice, it's up to you, Lord Tianshuo said. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang and Shuedong King immediately began to discuss. Shuedong King, what do you think? Jian Wushuang asked. You've seen the 3-star mission this time. With my strength, it will be a bit stressful to complete 3-star missions alone. I'm afraid it will take some time for me to successfully become an earth-level member. But if I can get this sacred elixir, I can exchange it for a lot of good things. Then my strength will improve a lot, and the speed of completing the mission will be faster. So, I hope to exchange for this divine earth fruit now. What about you? Shuedong King looked over. I think so too. Jian Wushuang smiled. Even if they waited until the earth-level members went to exchange, they would only get 10 million more sacred elixirs. If they split the money, they would each get 5 million more sacred elixirs. 5 million sacred elixirs were not as important as 100 million sacred elixirs. Of course, they did not need to wait so long. Sir Tianshuo, we have decided to exchange for the divine earth fruit now, Jian Wushuang said. Okay. Sir Tianshuo nodded slightly. With a flip of his hand, the divine earth fruit disappeared from his hand. Now you have 100 million sacred elixirs. If you divide the 100 million sacred elixirs equally, each of you will get 50 million sacred elixirs. You can choose to buy treasures from me or get ready-made sacred elixirs. Within 10 days, someone will deliver the sacred elixirs to you. Let's take a look at the treasures first, Jian Wushuang said with a smile. What a joke. The treasure pavilion of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance was the only one in the divine beginning world. How vast was the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance? It was not surprising that 99% of the treasures in the divine beginning world should be available in the treasure pavilion, as long as there were some. However, one needed a certain level of authority to exchange for them. Although they were only ordinary members, there were still some extraordinary items that ordinary members could exchange for. You can tell me what kind of treasures you want. Lord Tianshuo's tone was cold and emotionless. Brother Tianhuo, this is your first time in the treasure pavilion. You can go first, said Shuedong King. Jian Wushuang did not stand on ceremony. After pondering for a moment, he said directly, Lord Tianshuo, I first need some treasures that can help me accumulate divine power. Treasures that can accumulate divine power? You mean treasures that can refine and help you reach the highest level of divine power in a short time? Sir Tianshuo asked. Yes, I haven't cultivated for a long time. In the past, I relied on absorbing the pure power of the sacred elixir to increase my divine power. But now that I'm at a higher level, I need more and more divine power. Absorbing the sacred elixir alone costs a lot of sacred elixirs, and the effect is even weaker, Jian Wushuang said. You've been absorbing the sacred elixir to increase your divine power? Lord Tianshuo looked at Jian Wushuang in surprise. Brother Heavenly Marquis. Shuedong King was also quite surprised. Why is it strange? Jian Wushuang asked curiously. Of course it's strange, Shuedong King said directly. Brother Heavenly Marquis, first of all, you should know that the sacred elixir is mainly used as a currency in the beginning divine world. Secondly, it's used to absorb and refine. Even if it's really used to absorb and refine divine power into your own, the process is very complicated and long. Under normal circumstances, very few people do this. Even if they do this, many people are helpless. But you've been absorbing and refining the power of the sacred elixir to increase your divine power. This is a waste. Chapter 2962, Divine Power Fruit, a Waste. Jian Wushuang was stunned. It is indeed a waste, Lord Tianshuo said. If you need to accumulate and improve your divine power, there are divine power fruits in my treasure pavilion that are specially used to improve your divine power. These divine power fruits are available at all levels and are tailored to the needs of different levels. You are only a divine master now, so ordinary divine power fruits should be enough for you. How much divine power does an ordinary divine power fruit contain? Jian Wushuang asked. One is worth 100,000 sacred elixirs, and it's even purer. As for the price, I can exchange 10,000 sacred elixirs for an ordinary divine power fruit, Lord Tianshuo said. One is worth 100,000 sacred elixirs? And the price is only 10,000 sacred elixirs? Jian Wushuang was stunned. He finally understood that Lord Tianshuo and Shuedong King would say that he had wasted it. It was more than a waste, it was a waste of a treasure. Damn, I've absorbed so many saint elixirs. If I exchange them all for divine power fruits. Jian Wushuang looked strange, but then he said seriously, Lord Tianshuo, an ordinary divine power fruit is worth 100,000 saint elixirs. What about a higher level one? A higher level one has an earth-level divine power fruit. It's more than enough for an ordinary false saint or a weaker true saint. As for its effect, one is worth about 3 million sacred elixirs. It's worth 100,000 sacred elixirs, Sir Tianshuo said. Jian Wushuang's heart trembled, but he was pleasantly surprised. He was surprised that he had been too wasteful. He was happy with the effect of the earth-level divine power fruit. One fruit was equivalent to absorbing 3 million sacred elixirs. How much divine power was that? I'm not too far away from the peak of the great divine master. According to what I thought before, I should be able to break through after absorbing at most 20 million sacred elixirs. But now, this divine power fruit. Jian Wushuang's eyes flashed with a strange light. He immediately said, Lord Tianshuo, give me 20 earth-grade divine power fruits first. 20? Sir Tianshuo raised his eyebrows. Shuedong King looked at Jian Wushuang in surprise and said, Brother Heavenly Marquis, one earth-grade divine power fruit is equivalent to absorbing 3 million sacred elixirs. 20 is the divine power of 60 million sacred elixirs. Why do you need so many? I have my uses. Jian Wushuang did not explain much. Earth-grade divine power fruit, 100,000 sacred elixirs per fruit, 20 would be 2 million sacred elixirs. You still have 48 million sacred elixirs left, Lord Tianshuo said. Lord Tianshuo, I need a special sword formation. I don't know if you have it, Jian Wushuang said. Sword formation? What sword formation? Lord Tianshuo looked over. The reincarnation sword formation was created by an expert named Sword Master Tongxin. Sword Master Tongxin was almost invincible among the immortal saints when he was alive. He created a total of 12 reincarnation sword formations. Jian Wushuang explained the information of the reincarnation sword formation in detail. The Samsara sword formation had been of great help to him since he got it. He had comprehended the spacetime and reincarnation rules at the same time. In terms of the spacetime rules, the swordsmanship he created was focused on spacetime. In terms of the reincarnation rules, he relied on the Samsara sword formation to perfectly displaying his comprehension of the reincarnation rules. However, he had only obtained the first 4 layers of the Samsara sword formation. He could now use the 4th layer of the ice and snow world, and he could also use its strongest power. At this time, of course, he was eager to get more powerful sword formations. Wait a moment. Lord Tianshuo immediately began to investigate. There was nothing he could do. There were too many treasures in the treasure pavilion. Take the Samsara sword formation for example. There were hundreds of sword formations in the treasure pavilion that were also named after Samsara. Even if Lord Tianshuo was the treasure spirit of the treasure pavilion, he had to check carefully. A moment later he looked at Jian Wushuang again. I found it. The reincarnation sword formation you asked for does exist in the treasure pavilion, and it has a complete 12 sword formations. Among the 12 sword formations, the first 4 require the permission of an ordinary member, but the middle 4 require the permission of an earth-level member. As for the strongest sword formation, the last 4 require the permission of a heaven-level member. Jian Wushuang was stunned. He already had the first 4 levels of the 12 samsara sword formations, so he naturally needed the middle 4 levels. However, he did not expect the middle 4 levels to have such high authority. They needed the earth level, and the last 4 levels needed the authority of a heaven-level member. However, Jian Wushuang thought about it carefully and could understand. Sword Master Tongxin was, after all, an almost invincible immortal saint. His strength was extremely terrifying, and the samsara sword formation he created was the basis of his fame. It was extremely powerful, which could be seen from the first 4 levels alone. It was normal for such a powerful sword formation to have a higher exchange authority. Lord Tianshuo, how many sacred elixirs do you need to exchange for the middle 4 levels of the samsara sword formation? Jian Wushuang asked. 15 million. Lord Tianshuo said. Jian Wushuang nodded secretly. 1,500 sacred elixirs were not too expensive to exchange for the middle 4 levels of the samsara sword formation. Since I can't exchange for the medium 4 sword formation now, forget it. Anyway, with my current strength, it shouldn't be difficult for me to become an earth-level member. I can keep these sacred lands for now. When I become an earth-level member in the future, I can exchange for them. Jian Wushuang smiled. However, although I can't exchange for the sword formation, I can exchange for the magic weapons that drive the sword formation. Previously, Jian Wushuang had used 18 Netherblood Divine Swords to drive the sword formation. Each of the 18 Netherblood Divine Swords was a top-tier heavenly treasure, and their power was extraordinary. However, as Jian Wushuang's strength continued to increase, it was difficult for him to satisfy his needs with just the top-tier heavenly treasures. The most important thing was that he had received a huge sum of 50 million sacred elixirs in one go, which made him very confident. In order to increase the power of the reincarnation sword formation, he really wanted to exchange the 18 Netherblood Divine Swords again. Sir Tianshuo, I need a set of standard divine weapons of the Holy Treasure level, all of which are divine swords. The size should be based on the Netherblood Divine Sword in my hand. It would be even better if I have a divine weapon of the Holy Treasure level. Jian Wushuang took out Netherblood Divine Sword. I don't have a divine weapon of the Holy Treasure level in my treasure pavilion, but I can find a replacement for it. As for the price, it's 200,000 for an ordinary 3rd-grade divine weapon, 600,000 for an advanced 3rd-grade divine weapon, and 1,500,000 for a superior 3rd-grade divine weapon. You can choose one yourself, Sir Tianshuo said. Of course, Jian Wushuang would prefer a superior 3rd-grade standard magic weapon of 1.5 million. However, he needed a total of 18 such standard magic weapons. If he had 1.5 million each, it would add up to 27 million sacred elixirs. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.